Chapter 315. Wang Ming left at around 9:00 in the evening. He had thought at first that he would directly stay and interact with Wang Ling, but when he thought about how Jia Yin was still standing at the door, he gave up the idea. Although a strong and well-trained military cultivator like Jia Yin wouldn't get tired standing in a military posture for a few days, Wang Ming didn't really have the heart to make Jia Yin stand at the door all night because of him. Wang Ming didn't like Jia Yin very much. His style of doing things was completely dogmatic, which was very different from Wang Ming's flexible Academy of Science research policy. But no matter how much he disliked him, the other party was merely abiding by orders to protect him. When Wang Ming left the house, he saw Jia Yin staring at him coldly. When he saw that Wang Ming had left, Jia Yin put away his military posture and did a perfect 180-degree turn before he slowly walked toward the car and opened the door for Wang Ming. He stared at Wang Ming with the expression of a viper in the jungle staring at its prey. At that moment, Wang Ming suddenly thought of the good thing about Wang Ling's dead fish eyes. His expression was a little stiff, but at least he wasn't cold. I'll truthfully report what happened tonight to President Qi. I'll verify information on everyone in this villa one by one, and I'll focus on the person who pulled you in, Jia Yin said as he looked at Wang Ming. He recalled the awkwardness from before. When Wang Ling had pulled Wang Ming in, he had moved so quickly that Wang Ming hadn't even been able to see Wang Ling's face clearly before Wang Ming had directly disappeared from his sight. Wang Ming looked at him a little angrily and stood outside the car, refusing to go in. That's my little brother. And my uncle, my auntie. And my grandfather. What are you thinking? Jia Yin's face was cold. Even if it's second-grade uncle, it's no use. Business is business. The corner of Wang Ming's mouth twitched gloomily. Investigate, investigate. He knew that Wang Ling had the great shielding spell, so even if they found him, it would just be a mosaic. He really didn't know where on earth President Qi had found this freak. It was June 28th on Wednesday in the 10th week of the semester. When Wang Ling arrived at school in the morning, he heard news from two acquaintances. One of them was Tan Qian. The owner of the beef noodles shop was Boss Tan's younger brother, who had come to the villa to cause trouble before. Jinka had taught him a good lesson, and under grenade-throwing senior immortal and Boss Tan's earnest guidance, he had become a genuine snitch. It had to be said that Boss Tan indeed had great foresight. From the first moment he had seen Tan Qian, he had done everything possible to help Tan Qian extricate himself from the muddy waters of Immortal Mansion as quickly as possible. This time, Tan Qian was going to appear in court as a witness to testify against Immortal Mansion. Before that, Tan Qian had also sent a complete copy of Immortal Mansion's peripheral intelligence network to the various cultivation police stations. It was precisely because of this that the local police were able to quickly carry out operations to clear out the forces at the periphery of the immortal abode. The above gossip came from Grade 1, Class 3's Master of Dopey, Dopey Gua. During the morning self-study period, there was a hubbub of voices in the class. Almost all the discussions were about the Immortal Mansion. I heard that this witness's brother runs a noodle shop. Super Chin asked. Dopey Gua nodded solemnly. Yes, it's authentic Lao Tan pickled cabbage beef noodles. I have an uncle who went there to eat their noodles. The boss has a scarred face and looks unfathomable. Wang Ling, then, in addition to Tan Qian, the second person Wang Ling heard about was Tang Yuning. Back then, this vagabond singer who couldn't even eat 3 meals a day had quickly become famous because Wang Ling had given him a song. Come to think of it, Tang Yuning was also connected to the beef noodle shop's Boss Tan. Before Tang Yuning had made a name for himself, he had been a regular at Boss Tan's midnight dining hall. This Tang Yuning is really tragic. Speaking of this person, Dopey Gua put a wry smile on his face and put his hand to his forehead. What's going on? Dopey Gua, previously, after his song Old Boys became popular, he tried to release several original singles. But it seems that they all stole the headlines. Wang Ling, when he released his second song, the prison break of the master of Shadow Stream's younger sister stole the headlines. When he released his third song, the master of Shadow Stream's younger sister was caught and stole the headlines. After that, Shadow Stream's core stronghold was destroyed, the old devil was arrested, and the old devil was interrogated live online. Speaking up to this point, Dopiguo couldn't help but sigh. It was his birthday yesterday. Thousands of fans came to celebrate his birthday. I thought he would definitely make the headlines, but who knew that something like Immortal Mansion would happen? Wang Ling, while the class was in the middle of a heated discussion, Old Antique stepped into the classroom at that moment. He was a full 20 minutes earlier than usual, and even took up the morning self-study period. The monthly exam was just around the corner, and it was a very important one. It was a joint exam from multiple schools, and everyone would use the same exam paper to ensure that the students could accurately find their ranking in the entire district. It wasn't enough to be king in one's own district, only by being king in the district or even the whole city could one be considered domineering. The teacher who prepared the joint exam papers this time is the district's history teacher, Teacher Ji Zhongkue. Old Antique raised his head, a rare look of seriousness on his face. When they heard this name, a lot of people in class couldn't help sucking in cold breaths. They were all too familiar with this name, because this was the most brutal and inhumane teacher and researcher in Peiyuan District. Every year, the freshmen in senior grade 1 could hear their seniors in senior grade 2 and senior grade 3 grumbling about this person. When Wang Ling had first started school, he had heard clan leader Yu in senior grade 3 mention rumors about this teacher. Of the 3,000 freshmen who had taken part in last year's 6th school joint exam, 90% had failed in the end. Even the best students in the elite class had achieved was only 70 points. So although the exact number of schools participating in this joint exam hadn't been officially confirmed, it was a challenge for both the students and the teacher to have such a brutal teacher prepare the exam papers. Because of this, Old Antique took advantage of the morning self-study period to enter the classroom early to announce the bad news. His expression was a little solemn, but he didn't lose his usual self-confidence. Teacher Ji might be brutal, but Old Antique was still very confident in his teaching. In last year's 6th school joint exam, the teacher in charge of the elite class hadn't been Old Antique, so the result had been very tragic. But this year, it was a battle to turn things around. Old Antique cleared his throat and looked at everyone. I studied Teacher Ji's exam papers last night. Not only did his exam paper contain hard historical concepts, it also included a lot of extracurricular knowledge as well as historical knowledge derived from recent hot topics, so it might be hard for a lot of people to accept, given the recent hotly debated Immortal Mansion incident. Now, let me tell you about the gossip of the dark forces. Wang Ling. Chapter 316. The concept of dark cultivation forces had actually only been put forward in the last few decades, and formed a clear dividing line with the light forces, which had clear qualifications to run schools. The light forces included both official and private cultivation schools, as well as various rogue cultivator sects which secular itinerant cultivators could freely choose from. To put it simply, the dark forces were blacklisted organizations which didn't have their qualifications recognized by the state, and which gathered rogue cultivators illegally to run schools for profit. It was like those black-hearted spicy strips workshops on the market that didn't have a food supervision certificate. Old Antique explained this historical concept from the dais. In everyone's eyes, the dark forces are a place where a bunch of vicious people gather, but you can't generalize. There are good and evil dark forces as well. There are even some 100-year-old sects which were blacklisted because their sect elders were in seclusion and couldn't apply for qualification certification in time. In recent years, a lot of dark cultivation forces have obtained qualification certification through formal channels. Everyone immediately understood. To put it bluntly, this was the difference between getting a certificate and not getting one. After all, the spirit energy information era was no longer the era when hundreds of schools of thought contended and immortals fought each other. Everything was governed by laws and regulations. If you wanted to survive in the modern cultivation world, you had to abide by the rules. Wang Ling deeply agreed with this point. The reason why he had decided to wipe out Immortal Mansion was because it didn't abide by the rules. Not only did it disturb his life, the most important thing was that it also seriously affected his studies. In this day and age, can you still let people do their homework in peace? But as Old Antique had said, the dark forces weren't a gathering place for crafty villains. There were some dark forces whose sect elders were in seclusion all year round. If they couldn't get a certificate right away, they would be directly blacklisted. Reliance High School was an example of what he was seeing. Everyone knew that the headmaster of Reliance High School, Patriarch Reliance, was a seclusion maniac. If it hadn't been for several elders of Reliance High School personally dragging this old sect leader out of seclusion back then to get a certificate, the school would have been directly demolished. Speaking up to this point, Old Antique's eyes flashed slightly. Based on teacher Ji Zhongkui's previous research papers, I'm guessing that he'll definitely write about the history of the dark forces. This teacher doesn't like to test people on concepts, but just in case, I'll put together a chronology of all the famous dark forces in history for everyone to remember. Teacher, what are the famous dark forces in history? Someone couldn't help but stand up and raise his hand to ask. I was just about to say it. Don't worry. Old Antique waved his hand and motioned for the man to sit down. Next, I'll tell you about some of the most famous dark forces in history, which are likely to be teacher Ji Zhongkui's test site this time. Hearing this, all the students in the class took out their notebooks. Seeing that Wang Ling wasn't moving, Dopey Guo hurriedly nudged him. What are you spacing out for? Hurry up and write it down. Wang Ling. For knowledge like this, as long as he had the heart to remember it, he would be able to remember it after listening to it once, so he didn't need a notebook at all. Of course, Master of Dopey's reminder was out of the goodness of his heart. Wang Ling swept his gaze over the class and realized that most of them had taken out their notebooks, so he could only take out his own and make a few symbolic notes. Otherwise, he would really look a little weird. Wang Ling sighed in his heart. Nowadays, it was hard to be a man, to be a top student who did everything possible to get the average grades in class. So sometimes, when he saw some people in class who slept and played games all day and were good at studying, maybe they really weren't studying behind the scenes, but purely because of their IQ, they had probably already occupied the high ground. Old Antique was the best at predicting test questions, and everyone in class had always firmly believed in this. He was a living human predictor. A few years ago, because Old Antique's predictions had been too accurate, the District Education Commission had inspected his work for half a year, suspecting that he had leaked test questions in the course of his teaching. However, as the #1 history teacher at No. 60 High School, the Education Commission hadn't been able to find anything in the end in the face of hard power. With his hands clasped behind his back, Old Antique saw that everyone had taken out their notebooks, then cleared his throat and said, after all, the famous dark forces in history should start with the Flying Talisman Gang. Back then, when this dark force first started, there was only one person, and he started by peddling fake talismans. He specifically picked relatives and friends to develop as agents and underlings. After selling 100 flying talismans, he could be promoted to a bronze agent, 1,000 to a silver agent, and 10,000 to a gold agent. Later on, the gang grew to more than 1 million people. And then, later, all the members of the gang were caught within 3 days. Because the talismans they sold were all fake, and they weren't particularly strong themselves, it didn't take much effort to clean them up. Then, the Flying Talisman Gang was labeled as the Waste Talisman Gang, said Old Antique. Everyone, in terms of the scale of development, the Flying Talisman Gang has the largest number of members in the history of the Dark Forces. In terms of hard power, Immortal Mansion should currently be #1. But before Immortal Mansion appeared, there was another major dark force that had to attract attention. I wonder if any of you have heard of Cheongchi sect. When he said this, Old Antique's expression abruptly changed subtly, but it only took a split second for him to return to normal. Wang Ling took in this scene. This is a sect formed by a group of top gluttons. Anyone who joins the gang has to eat 50 jin of food in one go to pass. Everyone, Old Antique said unhurriedly. Back then, when Cheongchi's sect was at its peak, its disciples spontaneously formed groups to develop local forces and look for local delicacies. They traveled all over the country to hunt spirit beasts and eat wild game. This directly led to the extinction of 17 kinds of spirit beasts. Holy shit! 17 kinds of spirit beasts were eaten alive. There were cries of surprise in the class. Even Wang Ling had an incredulous expression on his face. To be honest, the history of most of these dark forces was actually rather dark, and they actually weren't in the textbooks. If Old Antique hadn't mentioned it, Wang Ling wouldn't have known about such a strange thing. Now that he thought about it carefully, it was no wonder that silver unicorns hated humans to the bone. If they ran into a dark force like Cheongchi's sect, just the thought of it was a pain in the ass. Since they were talking about Cheongchi's sect, Old Antique naturally had to mention the sect leader, which was also something that teacher Ji Chongkue might want to test on. Chapter 317. Taoist Taoyue's deeds had in fact been passed down in the cultivation circle of the older generation. However, because Taoist Taotai was really too ugly, those who had seen his true face would feel sick just thinking about it, while those who had never seen his true face wouldn't even be able to eat after hearing a description. Hence, the name was taboo in the cultivation circle of the older generation, and people no longer mentioned it. Reputation was something that had to be passed down by word of mouth. Since no one mentioned it, it was only natural that people would forget about it. Thus, students of Wang Ling's age had no idea at all that such a person existed in history. Teacher, how ugly on earth is Taoist Taotai? Someone raised a hand to ask. Old Antique gave the class a general overview of Taoist Taotai, and in the end, everyone's focus was on his appearance. Everyone had seen ugly people before, but they were actually quite curious about how ugly they really were. In Old Antique's words, Taoist Taotai was so ugly that he looked like a Taotai and had a huge appetite, which was why other people had given him this nickname. However, Old Antique didn't mention a detailed description of Taoyue's appearance. Hearing the question, Old Antique frowned slightly and then smiled bitterly. You guys, can you stop paying so much attention to other people's appearances? You should pay more attention to the beauty of their hearts. Furthermore, Taoist Taotai wasn't born ugly, but because he cultivated the wrong cultivation art. No matter how much plastic surgery or how much elixirs he uses, he'll revert to his original appearance in a quarter of an hour. Everyone suddenly understood why Taoist Taotai hadn't gone for plastic surgery. It turned out that he was so ugly that even plastic surgery couldn't save him. Of course, apart from being the head of Cheongchi's sect, Taoist Taotai is also the person who established the international ranking list of killers, and is its guardian, said Old Antique. Isn't the legendary gorgeous itinerant the guardian? Dopey Guo was greatly astonished when he heard this, because this was completely different from what he had heard from his uncle. Old Antique had an enigmatic smile on his face. In fact, there are two ranking guardians. The gorgeous itinerant that classmate Hero Guo mentioned is also one of them. Back then, gorgeous itinerant and Taoist Taotai had established the list guardian envoys together, but not long after that, the two of them had fallen out and left the cultivation world, and Cheongchi's sect had disbanded on the spot. Currently, the ranking protector of the killer list is managed by Killer Taoist, who is ranked first. Disband on the spot. The students could not help but twitch the corners of their mouths. Sure enough. In this world, only gluttons could come and go at one's beck and call. It was no wonder that there was no news related to Cheongchi's sect on the internet. It turned out that this dark force was disbanded before it could be suppressed. What's the reason for the rupture? Someone asked curiously. Old Antique took a breath and said slowly, according to rumor, it was because gorgeous itinerant made a mistake during a mission. No one knew the exact reason. All we know is that after that, the two of them fell out and went their separate ways. Furthermore, Taoist Taotai swore that he would definitely look for gorgeous itinerant for an explanation. Everyone was a little disappointed at this answer. Even old Antique didn't know about this. If he didn't know, then no matter how much they looked it up, no one would find out. But compared with the others, Feather Lin was very excited. Teacher, teacher. Gorgeous itinerant, why is he called gorgeous itinerant? Is it because he's very perverted? Old Antique, it's clearly because he's too handsome, alright, Dopiguo explained on Old Antique's behalf. Although he hadn't heard about Taoist Taoya's exploits from his uncle, he had heard about gorgeous itinerant. Dopiguo, as far as I know, gorgeous itinerant is peerless in his generation. Anyone who sees his face will be stunned. He has the reputation of being the most handsome man in the cultivation world. Is he that handsome? The girls in the class were in an uproar. Take Senior Immortal Toya, the chief instructor of our military training last time, for example. If Senior Immortal Toya's looks were ranked in the top 20 in the cultivation circle, he would definitely be ranked in the top 10. But he definitely wouldn't be number 1. Gorgeous itinerant's beauty was publicly acknowledged in the cultivation circle back then. I remember there's a ranking on the internet, you can check it out. Dopiguo said, my uncle told me that a female cultivator took one look at gorgeous itinerant, and because he was too handsome, her chi and blood directly flowed backward to the top of her head. I heard that she hasn't woken up to this day. Is it that bad? Old Antique smiled slightly. What classmate Guo said is true, I've also heard about it. Hearing this, Feather Lin became more and more curious about gorgeous itinerant, and her heart itched like a little claw scratching at it. Ah! It would be great if I could see gorgeous itinerant with my own eyes. Perhaps everyone will have a chance to see him in the future. On the dais, Old Antique rubbed his belly and laughed. Teacher was also in his prime when he was young. As soon as he said this, the whole class sank into silence. Old Antique wanted to cry but had no tears to shed. Is there actually no one who agrees? This teacher is very hurt. After school that day, the 3 class representatives, Dopiguo, Super Chin and Lotus Sun, got together and seemed to be discussing something. Wang Ling narrowed his eyes in their direction, and only then did he realize that there was a little peanut among them. Don't you think Old Antique looks a little strange today? Super Chin asked. That's right, that's right. Very strange. Dopiguo folded his arms and stared at the others. In the past, Old Antique never cared too much about his appearance. After class this time, guess what I saw when I passed by the toilet? What did you see? Asked Lotus Sunday. I saw Old Antique actually looking at himself in the mirror in the toilet. Holy shit. There's such a thing. The others were stupefied. This indeed sounded a little strange, and even Wang Ling couldn't help but sigh in his heart when he heard it. Given Old Antique's normal behavior, if he had the time to look in the mirror, he would definitely save it to eat a few more packets of spicy strips. Everyone loves beauty. Lotus Sun sighed, and then said seriously, I also want to remind everyone that you'd better be careful after school this month. Why? Chapter 318. It was June 29th on Thursday in the 10th week of the semester. At 3:00 in the morning, something big happened on a night market street in Shanghai City. According to eyewitnesses, a student in a school uniform had been walking down the street like a zombie. Halfway down the street, his body had immediately burst into flames, and he had started to spit fire wildly in all directions. The roaring flames had engulfed the entire street, and the entire night market street had been burnt to a crisp. Even the zebra crossing on the ground had been directly roasted away. Thick smoke billowed all around, making it look like a scene out of a movie. People from the cultivation fire department had immediately set up a barrier to stop the fire from spreading, but by the time they had taken care of everything, it was already too late. The fire had been too terrifying, and there was no way to save the night market street. Fortunately, at 3:00 in the morning, almost all the merchants on the street had already closed up, and no one had been injured. In the entire incident, a total of 4 people had suffered minor burns and gas poisoning at the same time. It was reported that these 4 people had come out in the middle of the night to buy supper, and had been unjustly implicated, so the moral of this story was that you should sleep well in the middle of the night. Staying up late and eating supper was bad for your health. As for how the incident would be handled, a lot of people could actually guess. The mayor of this district would definitely be removed from office, and the Songhai city government would have to bear the responsibility for the medical expenses of the other 4 people as well as the losses suffered by the nearby merchants. In some sense, this incident was no less than a terrorist attack, as the instigator of this terrorist attack, the student who had spat fire, had died. According to the eyewitness accounts of the 4 people who had bought supper, the student had been knocked out by a black shadow when he had spewed fire, and had been taken away along with him. Thus, this incident had become the new topic of discussion during the morning self-study period in class that morning. Super Chen frowned and crossed his arms with a solemn expression. I heard that this was the work of Shuego's sect, the new dark force that has risen up recently. A lot of students who have been targeted by them have been forced to eat their products on their way home from school, and then lost contact with their families and schools. Someone suddenly thought of Fong Xing. Student Fong Xing from class 2 seems to have taken a week off. Could it have something to do with Shuego's sect? Shuego's sect only came out in the last 2 days, and student Fong Xing's parents personally called the school to explain the situation. That shouldn't be the reason. Little Peanut shook his head. He was very sure of this. When I handed in my homework 2 days ago, I heard Class 2's teacher in charge, Meng Kaming, and Teacher Pan talk about it in the office. There's no way it's wrong. Wang Ling couldn't help laughing in his heart. Given Fong Xing's ability, if this group of people targeted him, they definitely wouldn't have a good time. Fong Xing was now still recuperating on Immortal Toya's Chrysanthemum Island. Wang Ming had told him that he didn't have to pay special attention to that strange substance suppressing his strength. It would break down on its own in a few days, and Fong Xing would naturally wake up then. To be honest, Wang Ling had been wary of Fong Xing when he had first met him. After all, he hadn't been clear about Fong Xing's background at the time, and hadn't bothered to find out. After the Immortal Mansion incident this time, Wang Ling's biggest gain was that he had thoroughly understood Fong Xing's identity, which made him feel much more at ease. While they were thinking, Dopigwa suddenly changed the topic. Did you guys see the video that went out this morning? What? There's even a video. It seems a reckless friend filmed it. A student in a school uniform turned into a man on fire, and then spewed fire everywhere, Dopigwa answered truthfully. What kind of evil art does he cultivate? Is it possible that he's a criminal who deliberately disguised himself in a school uniform to cause a riot or something? Probably not. Dopigwa shook his head and said, I've seen the video. When this student spewed fire, he was still roaring, and looked like he had gone mad. Also, my uncle told me that the instant the student spewed fire, the temperature was over 10,000 degrees. Wang Ling frowned. An ordinary fireball from an expert at the peak late soul formation stage was already over 10,000 degrees, but if this person was really just a student, then this kind of temperature was a little too exaggerated. This reminded Wang Ling of Mo Immortal Castle's Mo Immortal Water incident. However, Wang Ling had bumped into Mo Immortal Castle's Mo Immortal Water incident while it was still in the experimental stage, and he had directly killed the whole plan in the cradle. The Shuego sect this time was similar to the mutation potion that Mo Immortal Castle had produced back then. The only difference was that most of the mutation potions that Mo Immortal Castle had produced back then had been failures. And this time, Shuego's sect had obviously come prepared. For a Foundation establishment student to be able to create destructive power comparable to that of a soul formation cultivator in a short period of time, whether it was elixirs or potions, they had definitely been planning it for a long time. This was a conspiracy that had been plotted for a long time. Of course, there were some things that Wang Ling didn't understand. For example, the name of this new dark force, of all things, it had to be called Shuego Sect. Every time he muttered this name in his heart, Wang Ling felt like his time and life were being stolen bit by bit. It could be said that Shuego Sect, a brand new dark cultivation force, was in the limelight. The Songhai city government had requested that all available police resources be mobilized to dismantle this dark force in the shortest possible time. But unfortunately, Shuego Sect hadn't left behind any clues since the incident. It was really too difficult for the police to investigate a case with no clues at all. In the office of the General Administration of 100 schools in Songhai City, Audhua scratched his head, feeling like his head was as big as 4 mountains. He still hadn't finished dealing with Immortal Mansion, and the interrogation of Master of Immortal Mansion Qingyu hadn't been completed. In the end, this Shuego Sect had suddenly popped up. Moreover, the most annoying thing was that this dark force just had to pick on the students. Currently, 12 students from 7 different high schools had gone missing in Songhai City. The fire this morning had been caused by a missing grade 1 student from God Vision High School. If he didn't handle this matter properly, no matter how good his relationship with Secretary Dakong was, the higher-ups would definitely vent their anger on him. While he was frowning, his phone rang. Seeing that it was the deputy director's office, he immediately picked it up. "How is it? Is there any new development?" Reporting to the General Administration, based on the information we've gathered on the 12 missing students, we haven't found anything in common with them. Audhua frowned. "Is this a random crime?" The deputy director, "Not really. If I had to say, these students are pretty good looking." Chapter 319. After that, the deputy director came to Audhua's office with the report. This young man was called Zhong Lang and was a rather honest young man. He had joined the general administration of 100 schools at the same time as Audhua. It wasn't long before Audhua became deputy director, and Zhong Lang became the office director who had been Audhua's partner at that time. Now that Audhua had been promoted, Zhong Lang naturally became the deputy director. "Leader, take a look." After hanging up the phone, Zhong Lang rushed to Audhua's office with a report in hand. It was a summary report on the 12 students, and the details included their great-grandfathers as well as their daily habits and preferences. Just as Zhong Lang had said, there were males and females among the 12 missing students. Their hobbies were all different. There was nothing in common at all. However, these 12 students were all very good-looking, and they were all natural. There were also photos of them when they were young for comparison. These students had been very beautiful since they were young. Audhua took a deep breath. That should be it. I'm guessing that the mastermind behind Shuego Sect hates good-looking students, so he specifically targets good-looking ones. What should we do now? Secretary Dakong wants us to resolve this matter as soon as possible. Audhua stretched out his hand and pulled out a student's report. Do you know this Xiao Yunqing? Back then, he was the most prestigious young disciple in the Xiao clan's outer sect. Audhua remembered this person very clearly, because he had been eliminated by Wang Ling at the start of the survival contest during the military training exercise for the 6 schools. Audhua sighed. This group of people even dared to touch a member of the Xiao clan. How deranged are they? If this matter isn't resolved quickly, I'm afraid Xiao clan leader will blow up our general administration of 100 schools. Audhua sighed. Zhong Lang, immediately draft a document in the name of our general administration of 100 schools and request that all the major schools in Songhai City explain the situation in detail to the parents of the students. Until there's no conclusion to this matter, from today on, the parents will be responsible for picking up their children to and from school. Zhong Lang, what if a parent refuses? Audhua, then have this family do a paternity test as soon as possible. Zhong Lang, why? Audhua, he definitely isn't my biological son. Zhong Lang, Audhua's notice was sent out at 11 in the morning and spread throughout the whole of Songhai City. Then, all the teachers frantically made phone calls to make sure that every student's parent had been contacted. Because there were students from year 1 to year 3 among the students who were arrested, the school that received the notice organized almost all the teachers to participate in the call. For some students whose parents could not come to school, the school even arranged for security guards or teachers to escort the students home. In short, it was necessary to carry out comprehensive protection. This was a rather stupid method, but it was also a relatively safe one. Shueigo's sect hadn't left any clues, so it would be good if they could find some clues while parents were taking their children to and from school. After Audrey sent out this notice, it could be said that all the parents in the city had been mobilized, which was more awesome than a military commander. Then, this matter became the new topic of discussion among the students that afternoon. The sect leaders of the major sects in the cultivation world issued announcements one after another, saying that they would personally pick up their children to and from school. Usually, even if it was a parent-teacher conference, these sect leaders wouldn't necessarily show up in person. This scene was quite rare in the eyes of a lot of students. Most of them might have a good relationship with a certain classmate at school, but they didn't know what that person's family background was like. This incident exposed a lot of people's hidden identities. The whole school seemed to be bustling with activity because of this incident. There was no need to doubt Lotus Sun's background. This young miss had been the center of attention since the start of the semester. Outside number 60 high school, there were several nearby security teams arranged by Huagua Water Curtain Group to ensure her safety in all aspects. After the first afternoon class, Wang Ling heard a lot of gossip from Dopigua. Have you heard? There are quite a few big shots in the normal class. Dopigua spoke in a low voice, looking very mysterious. These people usually hide themselves too well. If this matter hadn't blown up, no one would know about their family background. Someone laughed. You can't say that. Super Chin shook his head. It's because their family background isn't simple that they're hiding it. With their family background, they were only able to get into a regular class in a regular high school. It's actually quite shameful to say it. I wouldn't have the face to say it. That's true. In the regular classes, from class 1 to class 3, there are quite a few people who are the children of sect leaders. In particular, there's one called Jiang Bai, whose father is the sect leader of Kitchen Knife Sect. Kitchen Knife Sect, what's that? It's a sect that started with gourmet food, and is known as the New East Culinary Academy of the cultivation world, Dopigua explained. Dopigua explained, I just called an uncle of mine who works in Kitchen Knife Sect to confirm his background. There's no mistake. You actually have an uncle who works in Kitchen Knife Sect. Don't look down on Kitchen Knife Sect, it offers great benefits. In addition to a 5th class black iron kitchen knife, new disciples can also learn the sect's exclusive secret technique, the dismembering knife technique, for free. They get 20 days of annual leave each year and double pay at the end of the year. If new disciples can pass the special chef assessment, they can directly be promoted to an inner sect elder. Dopigua said, also, sects are ranked according to heaven, earth, black, and yellow. Jiang Bai's dad's kitchen knife sect is ranked in the top 5 of the black sections. It has branches in several cities. Several of the students in grade 1, class 3 were startled when they heard this. There were hundreds of thousands of Light Force sects in Huaxiao Nation alone, and there were tens of thousands of them. To be able to rank in the top 5 of these tens of thousands of black sects, one could already see how powerful Jiang Bai's dad's kitchen knife sect was. So when they heard this, a lot of people were startled. Jiang Bai's family background is so powerful, why are his grades so bad? Dopigua spread his hands. So it turns out that family background has nothing to do with grades. Old Jiang's dad controls Kitchen Knife Sect, and he's so busy all day that he naturally doesn't have the time to care about Jiang Bai's studies. If it wasn't for this new Shueigo sect's aggressive attitude, the head of Kitchen Knife Sect might not have taken action. Dopigua sighed. So every time Jiangbei doesn't do well in exams, his teacher in charge always tells him that if he doesn't study hard, he'll have to go back and inherit the sect. Everyone. Chapter 320. Facts had proven that people had a deep fear of the unknown. In Wang Ling's opinion, the reason why the Shuego sect incident had garnered so much attention was entirely because, based on the clues gathered by the various cultivation police stations in Songhai City, everyone had pitifully little understanding of this unknown dark force that had suddenly appeared out of thin air. The most important reason was that there was still no news of the 12 missing students. Thus, considering that Shuego's sect was coming at them aggressively this time and that the current situation was rather grim, a lot of parents had even set up a temporary parents' committee to protect the flowers of the motherland. Parents of college students would form an escort team to be responsible for taking students to and from school during this period. This was originally a good starting point. Until, in the afternoon, a group of screenshots was posted on WeChat Moments by the students. Did everyone see the screenshot of my moments? Dopey Gua suddenly said in class after class. What screenshot? I'll go take a look. Several people secretly took out their phones from under their desks. When they saw what Dopey Gua had posted on his moments, their faces twitched violently. Wang Ling narrowed his eyes and looked directly through them. He was too lazy to use his wristwatch, and directly saw the screenshots that Super Chin was looking at from a distance. The screenshot was a screenshot of a few parents from other schools running for the position of the chairman of the parent committee in the parent group chat. The first screenshot, number 7 Tang Jichuan's mother. Hello, everyone, I'm number 7 Tang Jichuan's mother. He was currently working at the internationally renowned cultivation restaurant Kikaro Restaurant as the company's HRD, which was actually the restaurant's head butler. Previously, he had been the top chef of a restaurant for 30 years. He was an expert in cooking shredded kelp stewed with grave soil and weeds, as well as braised spirit pork knuckle in soy sauce. My braised pork knuckle in soy sauce is the restaurant's star dish. I even gave it a nice name, Talking Pork Knuckle. Parents in the group, if you have time in the future, you are welcome to try it for free. Cough cough. After saying so much, I just want to prove it. My interpersonal skills are not a problem, and I have excellent leadership skills. I'm honored to represent our little Tang Tang to run for the position of chairman of the parents' committee. I hope all the parents will vote for me. Everyone. This screenshot alone was enough to stun Wang Ling. The second screenshot, number 26 Shen Huxing's father. I'm number 26 Shen Huxing's father. I'm also registered to run for the chairman of the family committee. The child's mother and I are both doctoral students at Green Ox University in Green Ox Treasure Town. Black Ox Treasure Town's Black Ox University is the former residence of Old Devil Han. The university was built by Old Devil Han's only disciple, Han Mimi. I don't think I need to explain the university's origins. Currently, my child's mother and I have opened an education chain in Songhai City, Jinrui Education. It's really hard to make 1 or 2 billion a month. I really want to do something within my power for the children. If all the parents are willing to vote for me, I'll give them a 10% discount when they come to my organization for tutoring. Everyone, Wang Ling. Then, the third screenshot, number 17 Liang Huihuan's mother. Teachers and parents, I'm number 17 Liang Huihuan's mother. I graduated from America's MIT Cultivation College and currently work for Songhai City's Baida Cultivation Pictures Fund Company. His father is the CEO of this fund company. I voluntarily registered to run for the chairman of the family committee for the following reasons. 1. I served as the chairman of the family committee in my child's kindergarten, elementary school, and middle school. 2. Because of the flexibility of my work, I can be on call at any time. 3. I sincerely hope to make a modest contribution to the children. 4. Although I'm only at the late golden core stage, I have the urge to detonate my golden core to protect my child's life at any time. I hope everyone will vote for me, crab crab. Everyone, Wang Ling, the last, fourth screenshot was also the most exaggerated one. Number 13 Lin Zihua's mother. Hello everyone, I'm number 13 Lin Zihua's mother. I graduated from Haofu Cultivation University as a postgraduate, and now work for Shanghai City's Qianduo Antiques Company. My personal research direction is some big data in the cultivation circle, and every day I manage billions of transactions in cultivation magic treasures and antiques. Zihua's father is the general manager of a securities company. I don't want to run for the chairman of the family committee, but I want to warn all the parents present that if your son or daughter dares to bully our Zihua, I'll have the child's father smash your family stocks. Including Huaguo Water Curtain Group. Lotus Sun. Wang Ling, most of the time, it was the parents themselves who decided and elected the members of the family committee. The vast majority of parents came with good intentions, and these few screenshots from this afternoon were pure negative examples of parents. They circulated in the college students' WeChat moments, causing people to exclaim in admiration, "How shameless must one be to say something like this?" In contrast, number 60 high school was a lot more harmonious, and wasn't as enthusiastic about the formation of the family committee as the other high schools. That was because in the afternoon, Huaguo Water Curtain Group had sent a safety notice directly to every parent's cell phone, stating that it would do its utmost to protect the safety of all number 60 high school students. Even parents who didn't have time to take their children to and from school only needed to confirm and sign the agreement, and Huaguo Water Curtain Group would arrange for 2 golden core cultivators to escort the students to and from school. For many parents, this notice was much more important than the screenshots that had been circulating in their WeChat moments in the afternoon. Wang Ling had always felt that this was a reflection of hard power. The more powerful a person was, the more low-key they were. Thus, Wang Ling wasn't able to leave directly after school that afternoon. At noon, Teacher Pan had already called all the students' parents and asked them to send someone to pick them up from school. Teacher Pan gave each student in class a temporary number plate, and all the students waited in the school gymnasium after they received their number plates. Teachers stood guard inside and outside the gymnasium as well as at the school gate. It wasn't until the last student had been picked up by a parent that the teachers officially got off work. The safety of the students was always the number one priority at school. Special times called for special treatment, and the teachers of number 60 high school had no complaints. Every parent also had a number which the teachers of number 60 high school had sent to them on WeChat, and they could use this number to pick up their son or daughter. This number had another important purpose, which was to confirm the parents' true identities in case criminals pretended to be parents. After the teachers at the school gate verified the information, they directly transmitted it to the broadcasting room, which then broadcast it to the gymnasium. Student number 18 of regular class 1, your father has arrived. There's also a large group of people at the gate to pick you up from school. The announcer in the gymnasium rang out. Sighs immediately rang out in the gymnasium. The student whose number had been called stood up with a red face and buried his head in his hands as he headed for the door. For some reason, he felt ashamed. Dopigua, who was sitting next to Wang Ling, couldn't help laughing when he saw the student stand up. This person is called Fan Su. His dad is from Longmen Bodyguard Agency. He's been pretty low-key in class before, but now that this has happened, everyone knows that he's the young master of Longmen Bodyguard Agency. Wang Ling, student number 7 of regular class 2, your father is already standing at the school gate with his little friend, kitchen knives in hand. Very quickly, the announcer rang out again. Student number 8, please come out with student number 7. A skinny teenager with a buzz cut walked out of the crowd. This was Jiang Bai, whom Dopigua had mentioned before, and whose father was the head of Kitchen Knife sect. After the teenager got up, the girls sitting next to him also heard the announcement and left with Jiang Bai. Wang Ling was puzzled by this scene, when Dopigua laughed again. This girl is called Jiang Yan, she's in the same class as Jiang Bai. Hearing this, Super Chen couldn't help asking, are they brother and sister? Not by blood. Dopigwa shook his head and explained, because Jiang Yan's father is the second uncle of the head of Kitchen Knife sect. Chapter 321. When Father Wong arrived at number 60 High School's gate, he was shocked by the scene at the school gate for the first time. To be honest, this scene gave Father Wong a sense of déjà vu. Back when Wong Ling had just started kindergarten, there had also been such a large crowd of parents standing outside the kindergarten gate at the end of each day. But ever since Wong Ling had started kindergarten, Father Wong had never picked him up or dropped him off again. During that period, Wong Ling had been targeted by a lot of child traffickers because of his cute looks. In the end, the entire trafficking ring had been wiped out the day Wong Ling was abducted. So at that time, Wong Ling had set a record for wiping out thousands of trafficking rings from kindergarten to primary school graduation. Both father and son of the Wong family had kept their mouths shut about this matter, and neither of them had mentioned it to anyone else. They had kept their achievements and reputation a secret. So when Father Wong came to pick Wong Ling up personally this time, he felt a faint sense of nostalgia in his heart. He hadn't planned to come at first. But this time, on one hand, Teacher Pan had personally called him. On the other hand, the gate of number 60 High School was indeed a grand occasion, and a lot of parents had brought their families with them to pick up their children. Other parents had come, but he was the only one who hadn't, which was a little unusual. Pushing up his black-rimmed glasses, Father Wong walked into the crowd with his pockets in his hands. It was only after he entered the crowd that he realized that while the bowl of noodles looked messy, the parents were actually lining up. The reason why it looked messy was that some parents had brought disciples from their own sects to keep up appearances. The parents were lining up inside while the disciples were on the periphery, so it looked messy. Looking at the long line in front of him, Father Wong sighed in his heart. Apart from when he would calm down and line up at the anime convention every year, he had never suffered such grievances before. Because the teachers at the school gate had to verify the identities of the parents one by one before calling their numbers, the whole process was very slow. Some parents were a little impatient and frowned deeply. Many of the parents in line were reputable figures, and they definitely had private matters to attend to, but none of them cursed or urged them to hurry up because they were impatient. This was often the time when character was on the line. In order to ensure that the students could go home safely, the school teachers had delayed getting off work and stayed at school to work overtime. At this point, what else could they say? What other complaints could there be? Father Wong stood silently at the end of the line, but didn't feel bored. Writing came from life. Sometimes, it was good to collect material for characters. This could be considered an occupational disease. Father Wong's realm wasn't high, and he was only at the early chi condensation stage. But even so, he was still able to discern the strength of an aura from its body language. For example, Father Wong felt that this middle-aged man standing in front of him wasn't simple at all. This person looked very boorish, and he had a beautiful beard on his face. He wore ancient clothes, and he walked with his head held high and his chest puffed out. There were several kitchen knives on his waist, and it was obvious that he was a sect master. Father Wong stepped forward and patted the man on the shoulder. "Brother, you're here to pick up the kid too." As he spoke, Father Wong noticed a number of youngsters dressed in similar clothes as the male lead staring at him, and once again confirmed this man's identity in his heart. Ah! The middle-aged man hadn't expected someone to take the initiative to talk to him. He was dazed for a moment before he turned his head to look at Father Wong and casually replied, Father Wong wasn't tall, he didn't even reach the man's shoulder, and even when he spoke, he had to raise his head slightly. There was a sharp contrast between the two men's body shapes. "Father Wong, is your son in the regular class or the elite class?" The middle-aged man's face instantly darkened. Wasn't this just rubbing it in? What he was most afraid of was someone asking this question. He was the Grand Sect Master of Kitchen Knife Sect, but his son had actually only entered the regular class. If word got out, wouldn't he become a laughingstock? Thus, this sect master of kitchen knife sect chose to keep silent at that moment. He thought that as long as he didn't answer, this person probably wouldn't ask any more questions, right? Unfortunately, the person he was facing was Father Wong. It could only be said that Father Wong was in the end Father Wong. As a veteran web writer, he fully displayed his indomitable spirit when it came to the problems he encountered when collecting material. Father Wong, brother. Why aren't you saying anything? Sect master of kitchen knife sect, Father Wong patted the man on the shoulder. It's fine, we're all parents. In any case, we're all queuing up now. As for your child's education, we can actually talk about it. My child just entered school this year, and didn't do well in the entrance exam. Didn't do well. The sect master of kitchen knife sect was instantly delighted. Your son also didn't do well and entered the regular class. Father Wong shook his head. No, the elite class. The sect master of kitchen knife sect simply wanted to roar in his heart. Then why did you say that? Father Wong, my son is more introverted. I thought that if he entered the elite class with a bunch of outstanding children, he might develop a sense of inferiority over time. So I originally wanted him to go to a regular or remedial class. Speaking up to this point, Father Wong sighed. Who knew, this guy didn't do well. I just wanted him to be a bad student. Sect master of kitchen knife sect. This was F*** king not doing well. Shouldn't it be extraordinary performance? Nowadays, which parent didn't want their child to become a dragon or a phoenix? How could there be someone who wanted their child to become a bad student? At that moment, the sect master of kitchen knife sect was deeply aware that he had encountered a very strange parent, and he instantly didn't want to say anything. If he kept talking to this person, he would just be making things difficult for himself. But just as the middle-aged man turned his head, he saw out of the corner of his eye that Father Wong had taken out a small notebook and a pen, as if he was writing something down. There was no way that the grand sect master of kitchen knife sect wouldn't have this little bit of eyesight. He narrowed his eyes and clearly read the words that Father Wong had written down in the notebook. It read, Material 1, Sect Master of Kitchen Knife Sect, a burly man with a stocky back and a bear-like waist, several kitchen knives hanging from his waist. He is often vexed because his son is admitted to a regular class. After a preliminary personality test, this person should be a proper tsundere. Reading this, the middle-aged man's lips twitched fiercely and he was a little angry. You, who are you? Father Wong calmly pushed up his black-rimmed glasses. Sorry, brother, I'm gathering material. As a web writer, this is my job. Sect master of kitchen knife sect. As he spoke, Father Wong took out a black cigar from his pocket and put it in his mouth. Then, he stared calmly at the middle-aged man in front of him. Brother, do you have a fire? Lend me a light. The middle-aged man was shaking with anger at first, but the moment he saw the cigar, he instantly calmed down. This was a national treasure. Only people at that level could draw it. The middle-aged man stared at Father Wong, his face pale with shock. Who on earth was this person? Chapter 322. Father Wong's black cigar had a special origin, and people who hadn't seen the market would never be able to recognize it. But the head of kitchen knife sect was different. Jiang Haifu was only at the late golden core stage, and because his family had been very poor when he was a child, he couldn't be considered a graduate of a famous school. But when all was said and done, he was the head of a sect who had built it. All these years, he had traveled all over the country to collect all kinds of ingredients for delicacies. He could smell what kind of treasure had been added to this cigar with his nose. While Father Wong was spewing venomous words on the side, Jiang Haifu's subordinates around him couldn't bear it anymore. If it weren't for the fact that there were other parents and teachers here who were concerned about kitchen knife sect's reputation, they would have already rushed over and carried Father Wong away. But at the same time, when they saw Jiang Haifu's shocked expression, they were also dumbfounded. They rarely saw their sect leader show such an expression. Jiang Haifu had looked like he couldn't vent his anger earlier, but when he saw that black cigar, he immediately froze like a statue. After a full minute or so, Jiang Haifu came back to his senses and took out a lighter to light the cigar for Father Wang. He asked weakly, "Brother, this cigar is pretty good. Where did you buy it?" Jiang Haifu's tone was completely different from the impatient one before. When he saw Father Wang take out this black cigar, Jiang Haifu felt like he had suffered a great deal in front of Father Wang. "Oh, a fan gave it to me," Father Wang said lightly as he took a puff on the cigar and blew out a round smoke ring. The corner of Jiang Haifu's mouth twitched fiercely. A gift? What kind of fan could give this kind of national treasure cigar as a gift?" He stared straight at the cigar in Father Wang's hand with an envious expression on his face. It was hard for anyone below the golden core stage to understand the effect of this cigar. Even the smoke it exhaled didn't choke you at all, and instead had the indescribable fragrance of a high-grade perfume. Especially in the process of closed-door cultivation, if one could smoke such a cigar every day, it would simply be half the effort and twice the result. Moreover, it would also have the effect of preventing one from going berserk. There was a saying that a cigarette after an affair was better than a living immortal. This kind of national treasure cigar could only be found by luck. Father Wang stared at Jiang Haifu and understood from the look in his eyes. He smiled slightly. "I only brought one with me today. If you want some, I'll send you some later. That fan of mine would send me some every 6 months." Jiang Haifu was stunned at first, then he smiled like a peach blossom. "How can I do that? We're all parents, don't stand on ceremony. Your son and my son are fellow schoolmates, so we can take care of each other at school in the future." Father Wang narrowed his eyes and smiled. "My son is called Wang Ling, Ling as in command. He's very introverted and probably doesn't have many friends in other classes." Jiang Haifu nodded. "That's great. Our family actually runs a restaurant. In the future, if you have time, Brother Wang, please come to my place." The kitchen knife sect disciples on the side were dumbfounded. How long had it been? They were already calling each other brothers. Sometimes, if a girl's way of establishing a friendship was a bag, then a man's way of establishing a friendship might be a cigarette or a glass of wine. As they spoke, it was almost their turn in the line, and the teacher standing at the school gate very seriously verified their identities. Father Wang stood at the school gate and waited for Wang Ling to come out of the gym. Standing next to Jiang Haifu, Father Wang pointed at Wang Ling from a distance. "Do you see that handsome dead fish eyes in front? That's my Wang Ling." The corner of Jiang Haifu's mouth twitched again. Jiang Haifu could see that Father Wang's venomous tongue was completely natural and untainted. When it came to venomous words, he wouldn't even let his own son off. What did he mean by handsome dead fish eyes? Was there anyone who talked bad about their own son like that? Jiang Bai and Jiang Yan came out first and walked in front of Wang Ling. Seeing that Father Wang had introduced Wang Ling, Jiang Haifu also started to introduce his son. "The one in front wearing a white shirt under the school uniform is my son, Jiang Bai. The girl next to him is my second brother's daughter, Jiang Yan." Father Wang scared. "So thin." Jiang Haifu sighed. My son's more of a homebody, and usually doesn't eat well. Brother Wang, don't judge me by my burly appearance. I don't believe my son is so thin. He's completely unlike me. He doesn't have the slightest bit of my masculine genes." Father Wang couldn't help laughing. Sometimes, genes really can't be explained clearly by science. Father Wang felt that he had the most right to speak on this matter. He and Mother Wang weren't very talented, but they had given birth to Wang Ling. After picking up Jiang Bai, Jiang Haifu gave Father Wang a business card before he left. Father Wang took it and looked at it carefully, and was surprised to discover that Kikaro Restaurant was actually one of Jiang Haifu's businesses under Kitchen Knife Sect. When Old Man Wang was young, he had worked at Kikaro Restaurant for a while. At first, he had entered as a chef, and later as a senior gourmet consultant for a while. So this Kikaro Restaurant is your family's business? Father Wang raised his eyebrows. It should be our Kitchen Knife Sect's brand. It's the foundation of our Kitchen Knife Sect. All of our business chains revolve around Kikaro Restaurant's profits. Jiang Haifu couldn't help laughing. Actually, I'm lucky. When I was young, I received pointers from an expert, who gave me a recipe. Otherwise, I'm afraid this Kikaro Restaurant wouldn't have been able to do business, and so, Father Wang and Jiang Haifu, the head of Kitchen Knife Sect, got to know each other. When Wang Ling and Jiang Bai came out of the gym, both of them had blank expressions on their faces. It turned out that sometimes the friendship between men wasn't that complicated. To put it bluntly, it was just a matter of getting along well. After saying goodbye to Jiang Haifu and the others, Father Wang led Wang Ling to a park. The streets were now full of pedestrians, and it would be too eye-catching for Wang Ling to brazenly teleport home. Furthermore, after the Shuego sect incident, all the districts were on high alert. There was a police car parked on almost every street and patrolling officers. Father Wang sighed deeply at this scene. Ling Ling, don't you think there's anything unusual about this? We've already sent out so many police forces, but Shuego's sect actually didn't leave the slightest trace in the face of such an inescapable net. It's like seeing a ghost. Father Wang frowned as he looked at Wang Ling. In this regard, Wang Ling also felt a deep helplessness. He was actually quite surprised by Shuego's sect's appearance. After all, Immortal Mansion's limelight hadn't truly died down yet. Just as the country was using the Immortal Mansion incident to launch all kinds of calls to crack down on the dark forces, there just had to be this instigator who liked to go against the wind and commit crimes. Father Wang had wanted to analyze the incident further, but in the end, just as the father and son approached the park in front of them, they heard the faint scream of a girl up ahead. "You're not my dad. I don't want to go back with you. Who are you? Let go of me." Wang Ling's gaze focused as he looked into the distance. Chapter 323. What was he trying to do? Forcefully snatching a commoner girl to acknowledge him as her father in broad daylight. Because it was school break time, there weren't many people in the park at 4 o'clock. Although a few passers-by saw this scene, no one dared to stop it. In many people's eyes, this was just a helpless father dragging a disobedient daughter away. Furthermore, the man kept on scolding the girl for being so immature and running away from home, and how anxious he was and so on. When a lot of people heard this, they didn't want to get involved. When all was said and done, this was someone else's family matter. Why should they stick their nose into it? However, at first glance, Father Wang felt that there was something fishy about this man in the woolen hat. He couldn't put his finger on it. It was more like a sixth sense. He didn't have Wang Ling's great blood origin spell, which could directly analyze and compare the blood relationship between the two of them. But Father Wang felt that his sixth sense had always been very accurate. He just didn't think that this man in the woolen hat was the girl's father. There was a good saying, the most important thing about a family was that it was neat and tidy. This girl was dressed from head to toe in trendy brands. How could her father be a country bumpkin wearing an earthy gray woolen hat? When a person had a guilty conscience and was stared at, they would definitely feel guilty. But now, when the Wang family's two pairs of ancestral dead fish eyes stared at this man in the gray woolen hat, he almost instantly exploded. Before Father Wang could step forward and say anything, the man already couldn't help roaring, "What are you looking at? Have you never seen someone educate their daughter?" Frightened by the man's roar, the girl's eyes were already moist and filled with fear as she shook her head desperately. She realized that she actually couldn't open her mouth to speak. This was also the man's doing. When the man had grabbed the girl just now, Wang Ling had clearly seen him release some of his aura to seal off the girl's tongue. Thus, the girl could only shake her head desperately and ask Father Wang for help. No passers-by nearby dared to step forward. This was the closest and last straw to save her life. Thus, in the next moment, Father Wang decisively stepped forward and said a classic line from a movie, "Let go of that girl." The man in the woolen hat's face darkened. "Mind your own business. Otherwise, you'll suffer." The man's expression and tone were very fierce. It was clear that Father Wang's bravery in coming forward didn't scare him. He didn't care about a mere qi condensation cultivator at all. The man thought he had thought it through thoroughly, and he looked Father Wang and Wang Ling up and down. A father at the qi condensation stage with a foundation establishment's son who had just finished school at the nearby high school didn't pose any threat to him at all. Most importantly, the man was surprised to find that the young man with dead fish eyes was actually quite good-looking. His superiors had specifically instructed him to capture some good-looking students and bring them back. The young girl in his hands was one, and this young man was another. If he could bring both of them back, the organization would definitely give him a lot of points. A crafty look appeared on his face as he stared at Father Wang and chuckled. "Is this your son?" Father Wang: "Yes." The man: "Very good. But from now on, he is my son." Father Wang. After saying that, the man quickly sealed the girl's acupuncture points and pinned her to the ground. He then straightaway flicked his finger, and a burst of energy shot out from his fingertip at Wang Ling. This was a burst of energy used to seal acupuncture points. The man had cultivated it for a long time, and the organization specially trained everyone in this skill so that there were almost no mistakes. Once the energy hit the target, the 8 extraordinary meridians would immediately be sealed. This move was especially effective against cultivators below the golden core stage. However, the situation was a little unexpected for the man. Just as the force hit the young man, the aura actually turned around and bounced back with a force that was twice as strong. It was clearly just a burst of energy used to seal acupuncture points, but at that moment, it was like a spirit bullet shooting at the man at an extremely fast speed. Before the man could say F***K, the recoil of the aura had already pierced through his shoulder. In an instant, the man's face twitched in pain as he stared at Wang Ling in astonishment. He was caught off guard by this recoil. He couldn't even figure out how a foundation establishment high school student could fight back. In the next moment, he was already deeply aware that he had already failed his mission this time. Whether it was the girl or the young man in front of him, they could only give up. Now, running away was their top priority. But very quickly, the man realized once again that he had been thinking too much. He discovered that an extremely powerful spiritual pressure had locked him in place, and all the muscles in his body had instantly stiffened. There was no way a foundation establishment high school student could have this kind of spiritual pressure. The man's face was bloodshot and full of resentment. The organization had sent so many people out, but he had never thought that he would actually be the first one to be caught. Stupid, right? Father Wang stared at him and smiled. "You'll get used to it." The man, Wang Ling, never thought that he would actually run into the breakthrough that the police had been painstakingly searching for so long. No matter what this man knew, judging from his current behavior, he definitely had something to do with Shuego's sect. After that, Wang Ling used his spiritual pressure to directly unseal the girl's acupuncture points. He deliberately hid behind Father Wang so that the girl wouldn't be able to see his face from this angle. "Thank you, really, thank you very much." When the girl regained her mobility, her voice was still trembling a little, but it was clear from her tone that she was a lot calmer than before. She wanted to poke her head out to look at Wang Ling, but was blocked by Father Wang's figure. "Which high school are you from? Why aren't you wearing your school uniform? Where are your parents? Why didn't they come to pick you up?" The girl lowered her head. "I'm from Prime Elevation High School." My dad was going to pick me up at first, but I didn't take it seriously, so I told him not to come and left on my own. These 2 days are a special period. Don't you know how many students have been taken away? Even if young people are in their rebellious phase, they still need to have an attitude to be willful. Father Wang sighed. He just casually lectured her, and didn't say anything else because it wasn't worth it. After all, this wasn't his daughter, and it was better for the girl's parents to educate her personally. Uncle is right, I won't do it again. It was clear that this rebellious girl had been badly frightened by what had just happened. She lowered her head in front of Father Wang and didn't even dare breathe loudly. The feeling of being forced to be his daughter by a stranger, and being helpless and unable to defend herself, was really too unbearable. Wait a minute, I'll have my son call his friend over. He's from the general administration of 100 schools, I'll be a little more at ease if he takes you back later. Father Wang sighed as he stared at the girl. Since he had already gotten involved in this matter, he naturally had to see it through. The girl clutched the hem of her clothes with both hands. Thank you, uncle. As she spoke, Father Wang suddenly noticed that although the girl's head was lowered, she was intentionally or unintentionally glancing at Wang Ling. However, most of her line of sight was blocked by Father Wang, and she was too embarrassed to brazenly stick her head out to look. In the end, the girl could only frown. Father Wang couldn't help laughing at this scene. What are you looking at? The girl lowered her head shyly. Father Wang, stop looking, you won't get anywhere. Chapter 324. It was June 30th on Friday in the 10th week of the semester. During the morning self-study period, Dopey suddenly said, "Did you hear? Yesterday, a girl from Prime Elevation High School was kidnapped by people suspected of being from Shuego's sect." Of course we know about it. It's all over the place. Little Peanut nodded. The girl said she was forcibly taken away on her way home from school, and the man lied that he was her father. The scariest thing was that no one stopped him. Even an upright official can't settle a family matter. A lot of people naturally didn't want to get involved when they saw that it was a family matter. If Senior Audjua hadn't intervened in time, the girl would have been in danger. Dopey said, "That man who was caught is the biggest breakthrough in the entire Shuego sect case. In the end, Senior Zhua is still the best." A lot of people couldn't help exclaiming in admiration. There was now a saying in high school student circles, when Audjua makes a move, you'll know whether he's right or not. After experiencing all kinds of major incidents, more and more people were becoming increasingly familiar with this name. After listening to everyone's discussion, Wang Ling lowered his head in silence. He was the one who had specially asked Audjua to take full responsibility for what had happened yesterday. But the girl had never forgotten that Wang Ling had saved her, and had refused to agree at first. Audjua had also spent a lot of time persuading the girl, and had used the excuse of protecting Wang Ling's privacy to convince her. Wang Ling reckoned that at this point in time, the girl was probably still cooperating with Audjua's investigation. It hadn't been easy to find a lead on Shuego's sect, and no one wanted it to go to waste. At the same time, in Songhai First Prison, the interrogation of the man in the wool hat who had been arrested yesterday and was suspected to be a member of Shuego's sect had officially begun. But Audjua and Warden Liang had now run into a rather tricky problem, and that was that the suspect refused to confess to his crimes no matter what. In the interrogation room, the man was sitting in handcuffs. His spirit energy had been completely sealed off, and he was shaking his legs in boredom. He was spewing profanities, and was even shouting incessantly, "Even if you beat me to death, I won't tell you either. If you have the ability, lock me up for life. Aren't you all very capable? If you have the ability, use lynching. Fry me. Remember to flip me over. Otherwise, I'll become a fried dumpling." Outside the interrogation room, Warden Liang sighed deeply, feeling very helpless. This man hadn't admitted to any direct connection with Shuego's sect at all, so even if a criminal case was initiated, the most that could happen would be a charge of attempted kidnapping. But in this case, there was no point in capturing the man. An organization like Shuego's sect, which had brazenly captured 12 students without leaving any traces behind, had to have a very solid organizational plan. The man's stubbornness was completely within Warden Liang's expectations. However, what this man said could be said to have completely poked at Warden Liang's sore spot. Ever since the cultivation world entered the spirit energy information era, with the continuous improvement of laws, the set of punishments in the cultivation prison in ancient times had long been abolished. If it was 1 or 2,000 years ago, who would care so much? The first thing he did was a series of up, down, left, right, Alibaba. No matter how stubborn he was, he would still be able to pry open his mouth. What should we do? Director Zhua, what do you think? Warden Liang clutched his head, feeling a dull pain in his trigeminal nerve. They had already been interrogated for almost 2 hours, but this man still wouldn't even say his name. As for the ID they had found on him, it was also fake. What was even more frightening was that after they had collected the man's DNA and compared it with the cultivation police's system, they actually couldn't find any information. This guy was a genuine unregistered resident. To put it bluntly, this was the reason why this man was so fearless. He knew very well that as long as he didn't confess, there was absolutely no way they would be able to find anything on him. I remember there's a spell for forcibly intervening and extracting memories. Jua said. Absolutely not. Warden Liang shook his head. This is a trick that can only be used on criminals who have been sentenced to death. Although this kind of forcibly intervening spell can directly extract a suspect's memories as evidence, if the suspect resists stubbornly and refuses to cooperate, his memories will go haywire in the middle of the spell, which is very risky. Speaking up to this point, Warden Liang pursed his lips. Also, if you want to forcibly intervene, according to procedure, you have to ask your superiors first. It wasn't easy to get a lead on the Shuego sect case. If something happens to this suspect, neither I nor Director Zhua can bear the responsibility. So that's how it is. Zhua nodded, then frowned. Then there's only one last way left. Warden Liang, what is it? Zhua whispered something in Warden Liang's ear, and the latter's eyes instantly lit up as he slapped the table. Good. Let's do it. In the special prison cell of Songhai First Prison. The man in the wool hat was detained by 2 prison guards and sent to this prison cell. What the hell are you pushing me for? I can walk on my own. His words were still tough, and he didn't show the slightest bit of fear in front of the 2 prison guards, looking very unyielding. The 2 prison guards looked at each other and laughed. Hee hee. Laugh. You'll be crying later. Then, without saying anything else, the 2 of them directly raised their feet and kicked the man in the butt. It was very obvious that they had been holding back for a long time. This kick was very satisfying. One of the prison guards stared at him. You'll stay here until the second arraignment. Where is this place? It seems pretty spacious. The man got up and looked at the prison guards without a care in the world. After looking around, he laughed shamelessly. TSK. There's actually an independent guard here. Isn't my treatment a little too good? The 2 prison guards sneered and closed the cell door with a loud bang. Through the cell door, the man laughed cruelly at the 2 prison guards who were leaving. What kind of lousy prison is this? Songhai First Prison. The prison guards inside are nothing more than this. However, just as he finished mocking them, the man suddenly felt his hair stand on end. Turning around, he happened to see the 2 prison mates in the special prison cell staring at him with slanted eyes. In a split second, the man was already sweating cold sweat, because these 2 prison mates weren't just anyone. Chapter 325. At this moment, the two of them were meditating and resting. They were both wearing the spirit shackles. This was a great magic weapon that could suppress even true immortal magic power. Once you put it on, your spirit energy would be sealed in an instant, and you wouldn't be able to use any Taoist techniques, and you would be no different from an ordinary person. Of course, an ordinary person wouldn't have been afraid in this situation. But one of these two people was the famous master of Immortal Mansion, and the other was Devil Emperor Guo Pai, who had once shaken the world. Even if their magic power had been sealed, their physical qualities were still there. They could beat him up just by relying on their physical skills. Now, the man finally understood the mocking looks in the two prison guards' eyes. It turned out that they had set a trap for him. In the face of these two beings, who were like Buddhas, the man was terrified from the bottom of his heart. He didn't even dare meet their eyes, and could only lower his head deeply. His mind was wondering if he should learn a move from the TV series Yusue, where he would swiftly jump behind one of them, and then use his elbow to clamp down on the other person's head as he yelled, "Don't F*** king mess with me." But the problem was that he didn't dare. The old devil and Qingyu, the master of Immortal Mansion, had already heard the commotion, and they sat cross-legged in silence. After a full 10 minutes of silence, the man felt the air around him freeze. He didn't dare sit down, and he was already feeling pain. After a moment, the old devil slowly opened his eyes and looked at the man. "Newcomer, what crime did you commit to get in here?" The man struggled fiercely in his heart as he didn't know whether he should speak or not. The old devil swept him a look out of the corner of his eye, and he instantly broke out in a sweat. "You only have two choices here. Either you tell us the truth, or you die." It could only be said that the old devil was in the end an old devil. Even the spirit shackles couldn't hide the evil in his heart. Just looking at the man was enough to make him tremble all over, and he directly hugged his head as he shrank into a corner. There was a panic-stricken expression on his face. I cheated on someone, Qingyu, the master of Immortal Mansion. The old devil. The old devil was alarmed, because before he had brought the man here, Audjua had told them to cooperate. But wasn't the crime the abduction of young girls? Cheating on someone. What the hell was that? The man seemed to realize that his previous words were somewhat ambiguous, so he changed his words. I abducted a young girl, now it was a match. The old devil nodded in satisfaction, and then slapped the man across the face with a paw sound. What he hated the most was this kind of people who couldn't explain themselves clearly. If he wanted to kidnap a young girl, then so be it. Why did he have to say that he was having an affair? Why did he want to put the blame on his neighbor, old Wang? Outside the cell, Audjua and Warden Liang were watching from the surveillance room. After the old devil's slap, the man was instantly thrown into the air and flipped 3.5 times on the spot before falling to the ground. Warden Liang sweated profusely. As expected of the most dangerous prisoner. Even with the spirit shackles on, he still had such lethality. But it had to be said that Audjua's move was really too good. Director Zhua's plan is brilliant. Warden Liang was impressed. I believe it won't be long before this person confesses. However, was it really that easy? Audjua stared at the surveillance camera and was lost in thought. He somehow felt that the whole matter wasn't so simple. For Shuego's sect to be able to kidnap 12 students in a row and still pull the wool over everyone's eyes, it was obvious that there had to be an expert behind the scenes. While Audjua and Warden Liang were thinking of ways to interrogate this man who was suspected to be a member of Shuego's sect, the local cultivation police station called with the latest news on the matter. The person on the phone said that the 12 missing students had all returned unscathed. The collective return of the 12 missing students once again alarmed the major news media and became a hot topic on Friday night. The students had been found on the way out of school that day. When they were found, they were all slightly unconscious and had been dumped at the school gate. A surveillance camera at an intersection had captured a van carrying the missing students. After the police checked the license plate, they realized that it was fake. After a follow-up search, the police finally discovered that the van had been driven to the seaside and had been completely destroyed. The entire frame of the van had been burnt to ashes, and could be smashed to smithereens at the slightest touch. Everyone thought that the return of the students would lead to crucial progress in the Shuego sect case. Unfortunately, these 12 students didn't remember most of what had happened while they had been captured. In the evening, Wang Ling and Father Wang sat on the sofa and watched the news together, which was all about this incident. The return of the 12 students was of course a good thing. But any criminal gang, especially a dark force like Shuego's sect, which had a strict structure and was watertight, would definitely have a purpose in everything it did. The question that people were most concerned about now was what on earth had Shuego's sect done to these 12 students. When Wang Ling opened the chat group, it was in the middle of a lively discussion. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said, "Although the police don't seem to have any leads on this matter, I have some ideas." Xilianjinren, Senior Immortal, tell me about it. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal analyzed the situation. After Shuego's sect captured 12 missing students in a row, the police didn't know anything about it, and sent them all back. This proves that the person behind this probably has a very large intelligence network, and is very familiar with the overall map of Songhai City. To have such a large intelligence network, plus the fact that this person should be very powerful. I can roughly deduce this person's identity in 2 ways. First, this person used to work for the city government's intelligence bureau for a very long time, and is a retired senior leader of the bureau. But the possibility of this is very small. Lightning Dharmaraja, why? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, now that we're fighting corruption and promoting honesty, many city leaders don't even dare show their faces at banquets. At most, they eat abalone-flavored fasting pills at home. Where would they find the energy and spare money to establish a new dark force? It's already pretty good if they can afford a down payment on a house in the city school district. Everyone, Wang Ling, Xilianjinren, then what's the second possibility? Chapter 326. It was July 1st on Saturday in the 10th week of the semester. It was another peaceful morning. Wang Ling realized that the class group chat was particularly lively this morning. Normally, no one would talk in the group at all. For most people, the class group chat was used to send documents. After all, Dopigua had squandered all the topics they usually used to chat about during the morning self-study session. And the most important thing was that some idiot had also pulled Teacher Pan into the group when it had been created back then. This was very awkward. Maybe it was because there had been so much gossip recently, but the class group chat had directly exploded this morning. Wang Ling opened the chat app and found that the number of messages had increased to 99 plus. It was probably because there had been new developments in the Shuego sect incident. He scrolled through the messages and saw a series of them from Dopigua. Did everyone know? The person who was arrested yesterday and suspected to be a member of Shuego's sect has confessed. This news hasn't been announced to the public yet, but one of my uncles told me. What's the use of confessing? Aren't all the missing students back? But those students don't remember what happened. According to that person, each of the students who were taken away was fed a kind of fruit. Fed a fruit. What's the purpose? We don't know yet. Also, this person seems to be a peripheral member of the organization in charge of capturing people. After they're caught, they're handed over to the senior officers. He doesn't even know where Shuego's sect's stronghold is. And did you know, that person also said. Actually, Shuego's sect isn't called Shuego's sect. What does that mean? According to the normal pronunciation, it should be called Fruit Sect. I don't know which idiot's Mandarin led him astray. Everyone, Wang Ling scrolled through the rest of Dopigua's messages. According to all the information he had gathered, Shueiko Sect's real name was actually Fruit Sect. This organization's purpose was to take advantage of the time when the students were out of school to specifically kidnap good-looking students, lock them up in small dark rooms to eat fruit, and then send them back unscathed. Was there something wrong with this organization's brains? After putting the whole thing together, Wang Ling simply wanted to flip the table. Although the students had now been safely released, neither the police nor the school authorities could relax before they found out who Shueiko Sect's real motive was. The situation where parents had to come and pick them up after school would probably continue for a while. What he was afraid of, however, was that Shueiko Sect would come up with something else while they were on guard. Wang Ling stared at the screen in deep thought. Although the Shueiko Sect incident this time hadn't caused any harm to the students of No. 60 High, he had a strong intuition that number 60 High couldn't be ignored. Thinking of this, he smiled bitterly in his heart. His high school life was really colorful. School had only just started, and so many things had already happened. At the same time, on the top floor of Excellent Era's office building in the heart of the city, the lady of the castle sat in an armchair and watched the morning news. At the same time, she sighed inwardly at Taoist Taoya's methods. No one, including the lady herself, could have thought of this move to safely return the students to their original position. From the start of this incident, Taoist Tao Tai had single-handedly planned all the incidents involving Shueiko Sect, and the lady of the castle was his partner this time. Mo Immortal Castle had only provided them with all the information they had collected, and a lot of it had been obtained when Song Qingshu had still been in Mo Immortal Castle. The lady of the castle had kept this information, and who would have thought that it would come in handy now? The lady of the castle was halfway through the morning news when she suddenly felt an intimidating aura, which made her shudder all over. She could clearly sense that someone had come, and this person was a top expert. This aura came from the ground floor of the building, and she had already sensed it as soon as he stepped foot into the building. The lady of the castle had a horrified expression on her face, and cold sweat trickled down her forehead. This aura was too terrifying. It was as if that person had walked out from a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, and was filled with a murderous aura from head to toe. Furthermore, this aura didn't have a clear direction, and it was very obvious that this person had deliberately released it to brazenly announce to everyone in the building that he had arrived. Which senior is it? The lady of the castle hurriedly got up. Her voice traveled through the air and reverberated endlessly in the air. After a few seconds, there was a loud bang as the office door was blown open by this murderous aura. Then, while the lady of the castle was sweating profusely, a man wearing a mask, sunglasses, and a black windbreaker slowly walked in from outside. Looking at this person in panic, the lady of the castle hurriedly bowed. Greetings, Senior Taoist Tao Tai. The lord of the castle had already told her about Taoist Taoya's appearance. Coupled with that terrifying aura just now, the lady of the castle could almost instantly determine the identity of this person. The man in the black windbreaker didn't speak, and just walked over to the chair in which the lady of the castle had been sitting and sat down. After dozens of seconds of silence, he slowly opened his mouth. Juniors nowadays are becoming more and more unruly, the lady of the castle broke out in a sweat. Please calm down, Senior Taoist Tao Tai. This junior didn't expect you to visit this time, otherwise I would have received you personally. That's not what I'm talking about. The man in the black windbreaker waved his hand and stared at the lady under his sunglasses. I suddenly wanted to come over and take a look this time, and didn't tell you beforehand, so I don't blame you. But as a junior in the cultivation circle, your subordinates downstairs really lack discipline. The lady of the castle was stunned. Why do you say that, senior? The man in the black windbreaker narrowed his eyes. I didn't want to cause trouble, but when I got to the door, the receptionist at the front desk asked me if I had a reservation. The receptionist insisted on asking me if I had an appointment, and even insisted that I take off my sunglasses and mask. The lady of the castle, the man in the black windbreaker sighed. And that's not the worst part. The lady of the castle, Senior, please speak. This junior will definitely ask them to correct their mistakes in the future. The man in the black windbreaker had only taken off my mask halfway when your subordinate started to vomit. The lady of the castle, speaking up to this point, the man's black windbreaker had already puffed up slightly. It was obvious that he was very angry. The topic of appearance had always been a taboo for Taoish Taotai. Hearing what her subordinates had done downstairs, the lady of the castle blushed with shame in her heart. Senior is right, my subordinates deserve to die. I didn't say that I killed them. I just knocked them out with my aura, that's all. The man in the black windbreaker said, I was afraid that if they continued to vomit, they would vomit out their golden cores as well. The lady of the castle. Chapter 327. The lady was a little despondent at Taoist Taotia's words. Back then, these two brothers, who had been so close to each other that they had established the ranking list of killers together, had now completely fallen out with each other. It was hard to explain why. Of course, there were rumors in the outside world that it had something to do with a mistake that gorgeous itinerant had made on a mission back then, but no one had ever heard the truth. It had been a long time since that incident, and the lady still clearly remembered what the Lord had told her. If Taoist Taotai came to visit, there were two things that couldn't be mentioned. The first was Taoist Taotia's appearance, and the second was the reason why Taoist Taotai and gorgeous itinerant had fallen out. Unless Taoist Taotai himself mentioned these two things, he would definitely get into trouble. In this case, shutting up was usually the best thing to do. After a long time, the man opened his mouth. It's actually been a long time since that incident, but when I think about it, I still feel furious. The lady didn't dare speak at all. She could clearly sense the fury in the man in the black windbreaker when he thought about that incident. The world only knows how unparalleled my senior brother gorgeous itinerant's appearance was, and how peerless his style was, but they never paid any attention to me. Sometimes, appearance isn't everything. Taoist Taotai got up and stared at the lady. Do you know? Gorgeous itinerant killed my adopted son, Black Gauze, with his own hands. That's why we parted ways. There have always been rumors in the outside world that it was a mistake on his part. But in my opinion, he did it on purpose back then. The lady turned pale with shock, and felt like she had heard some incredible secret. Taoist Taotai continued, after he broke off with me, he officially retired from the cultivation world, and even faded out of the killer circle. After that, he changed his appearance, and I couldn't find him for a very long time. If it wasn't for your lord, I still wouldn't believe that he would actually become a history teacher in an ordinary high school. Fate makes fools of people. It was clear that Taoist Taotai had never been able to let go of what had happened back then. I've been planning this for a very long time. I want him to feel that pain for himself. Not only that, but I also want everyone to pay for the sins he committed. However, just as the man said this, the lady suddenly saw a ray of light coming in from the building's French windows. Be careful. Taoist Taotai pushed the lady away and stretched out his fingers to catch the light. It was only then that the lady saw that the light's true form was actually a piece of chalk. Then, a faint voice rang out in the air. Who would have thought that the grand Taoist Taotai would actually gossip behind someone's back? What an eye-opener. The lady turned pale with fright. Who is it? Don't panic, it's just a junior. Taoist Taotai waved his hand as he stared at the tip of the chalk and smiled slightly. Your accuracy isn't bad, but your finger strength is still a little lacking compared with your Shifus. The more ordinary something is, the harder it is to use it as a hidden weapon. There are only 3 people in the world who have the ability to control a hidden weapon like this chalk. The lady, who is it? Speaking up to this point, Taoist Taotai had already turned to look at the sky and sneered. The first one is the famous killer codenamed Reed, who used his precise hidden weapons back then and almost made it to the top of the ranking list of killers. Not only is this person accurate in throwing hidden weapons, he's also proficient in firearms. From thousands of li away, he can use his consciousness to precisely control the trajectory of the bullet to take a person's head. Furthermore, he doesn't need to hold down the gun when he fires. He doesn't even need wrist strength when he throws the hidden weapon. He can cause tons of damage just by relying on the nano-level microcontrol of his 2 fingers. But the junior outside probably isn't him, because he has already passed away after many killers joined forces to suppress him back then. The lady, the second one, is my senior brother, gorgeous itinerant. Taoist Taotai looked at the lady and chuckled. But if it was my senior brother who threw that piece of chalk just now, you would have already passed away. Apart from our Shifu, there is no one else in this world who can catch my senior brother's hidden weapon. The lady was speechless. She couldn't tell what the hell was the hint of pride in Taoist Taoya's tone when he said this. As for the third person, under his mask, Taoist Taotai smiled slightly. With a light pinch of his fingers, the piece of chalk in his hand instantly turned into flying ash. Only my senior brother's eldest disciple, Killer Taoist, in the air, Killer Taoist's voice rang out. As expected, Senior has a good eye. Your Shifu and I are from the same sect. If I don't even have this little bit of skill, I don't need to mingle around anymore. Taoist Taotai smiled. Are you here to pass on a message for your Shifu? Go back and tell your Shifu, since we're from the same sect, I'll give him plenty of time to say his last words. On the other end of the air, the voice clearly paused for a moment before it continued. This matter was my idea on the spur of the moment, and wasn't Shifu's idea. He's now living a very stable life, and has long since retired from the world. He has always felt very sorry for what happened back then. If Senior Taoist Taotai is willing to be magnanimous and let it go, that would be for the best. Let it go. Under his mask, the corners of Taoist Taoya's mouth twitched. If an apology works, why do we need the police? Killer Taoist, may I ask, Senior, is there no room for negotiation? I have to avenge Black Gauze. Taoist Taotai narrowed his eyes and replied through the air, his voice echoing in the air. If you want to discuss it, sure, but please ask your Shifu to come see me in person with the ultimate killing weapon he's hiding. You're not good enough. As soon as he said this, a domineering aura shook out from Taoist Taoya's body. This was the murderous aura that only Taoist Taotai possessed. When it was released, even the lady of the castle was directly knocked down. This aura shot straight back in the direction from which the chalk had come, and it was accompanied by powerful spirit power fluctuations that surged like a tide. This was the technique that Taoist Taotai was most familiar with, killing people with qi. After years of using this technique, Taoist Taotai was already very proficient with it, and it could be said that he had already reached the peak of perfection. At that moment, on the roof of a building about 10,000 meters away from the lady of the castle's office building, Killer Taoist's expression changed drastically when he sensed the impact of this aura. He hurriedly set up a barrier and did his best to resist it. Seeing that the situation wasn't good, a white-haired young man in a cap next to him hurriedly stepped forward to help him resist the impact. Bandit Evil took action. Senior brother. I'll help you. However, this collision of auras was too violent. The murderous aura that came in a straight line from 10,000 meters away directly smashed the barrier the two of them had set up without any effort at all. The violent impact tore apart all of Killer Taoist's clothes, and he and his junior brother crashed into the wall behind them. Both of them spat out blood at the same time. After a few minutes or so, the murderous aura dissipated. Bandit Evil suppressed the roiling chi and blood in his body as he looked at Killer Taoist next to him and asked, Senior brother, can Shifu survive this? After suppressing his chi and blood, Killer Taoist couldn't help sighing. I don't know if Shifu can. In any case, my last pair of floral underpants has been destroyed. I'll have to ask Shifu to reimburse me later. Chapter 328. Although it had only been a simple collision of auras just now, Killer Taoist already knew that Taoist Taoia's cultivation was now much more profound than before, and had advanced several times over. That murderous aura just now was the result of Taoist Tao Tai holding back. If he had used it all, both he and Bandit Evil would have died here. So here was the problem: 1. Who on earth was Black Veil? 2. What was Gorgeous Itinerant's ultimate weapon? Killer Taoist and Bandit Evil couldn't make heads or tails of these two things. The only thing I'm sure of is that this Black Veil definitely isn't from the Assassin Circle. After Shifu and Senior Taoist Tao Tai fell out back then, he faded out of the Assassin Circle. When the international ranking list of killers was released, I received a list. It clearly recorded all the killers since the list was created, and there wasn't anyone called Black Veil on it. Killer Taoist took a deep breath. Also, what Taoist Tao Tai said before about Shifu's hidden ultimate weapon: we've followed Shifu for so long, but have we ever heard him mention it? Bandit Evil shook his head. Indeed, he hasn't, but isn't Shifu's ultimate weapon a collection of chalk? Killer Taoist, it was a rare day of leisure on Saturday. After browsing the chat groups all morning and browsing through all kinds of online posts discussing the Shuego sect incident, Wang Ling felt a little visually tired. Almost everything in the last 2 days had revolved around this Shuego sect, and even the Immortal Mansion incident had been overshadowed. Now that Wang Ling thought about it carefully, he suddenly felt that the master of Immortal Mansion had had a hard life. He had set up such a large dark force to collect spirit swords from all over the place, with the ultimate goal of forging his own peerless spirit sword. But before he was halfway through his grand undertaking, he had collapsed. If that was all, it wouldn't have been so bad. At the very least, after Immortal Mansion had been besieged by Huaxiao Nation, it had already been recognized by both inside and outside the country as the dark force with the greatest loss in Huaxiao Nation's history. But this biggest dark force hadn't even dominated the top searches for a few days before it was replaced by Shuego sect, which had popped up out of nowhere. It was as tragic as Wang Fang's appearance on the top searches. He already didn't want to read all the speculations and comments online about this dark force, Shuego sect. Some speculated on the origins of the dark forces, some took the opportunity to promote boycotts against the dark forces, and there were also various light forces official Weibo on Weibo, refusing to let go of the official Weibo, forcing them to express their stance. This was like a natural disaster in a certain place, and then a group of netizens enthusiastically asked a certain celebrity to donate. At this juncture, no one wanted to have anything to do with Shuego sect. The light factions had their own considerations, and the entanglement of interests between sects was far more complicated than netizens could imagine. At times like this, there would always be people who would jump out and say that with great power comes great responsibility. Wang Ling personally had reservations about this view. If this was the case, Wang Ling felt that he would have to clean up after everyone on Earth. Because of the Shuego sect incident in the last 2 days, even Loopy Toad seemed a little depressed. Father Wang now had to pick up Wang Ling after school every day, which directly led to Loopy Toad losing 2 hours of its afternoon stroll. Originally, it was Father Wang who would take Loopy Toad for a walk after dinner, and Mother Wang would occasionally fill in for him when he had to rush a draft. In the Wang family's small villa, Father and Mother Wang followed the same rules for Loopy Toad as Wang Ling did, and had implemented the low-key education policy from beginning to end. The couple knew that Loopy Toad's previous life hadn't been simple. It had been a great demon king, and it was precisely because of this that it couldn't slack off. Thus, Father and Mother Wang actually treated Loopy Toad like an ordinary Akita, and it had to be leashed when it went out for a walk. Without permission, the most Loopy Toad could do was lie on its stomach in the Wang family's garden and look up at the sky. Life as a dog was actually really quite leisurely, unlike when it had been a demon king, where it had had to take care of the family's trivial matters every day. Although life seemed a little boring, it could still be considered comfortable for Loopy Toad. Loopy Toad remembered watching the news with the old man some time ago, and seeing an interview program about contemporary university students. In front of the TV, these Golden Core University students had bitterly denounced how strict their university teachers were, saying that entering a Golden Core University would make things easier was complete nonsense, and that the intensity of their daily training was comparable to that of the college entrance examination, and they were as tired as dogs. But as it turned out, Loopy Toad really didn't think being a dog was that tiring. As evening approached, Loopy Toad lay on its stomach in the garden, feeling bored to death. Old Man Wong had gone out on sheep, Mother Wong had gone out to buy groceries, Father Wong was still writing his manuscript in his room, and little Master Ling was still doing his homework. There was no one to take Loopy Toad for a walk again, so it could only lie down in the garden. It couldn't just bite the leash and walk itself, could it? Loopy Toad yawned and was about to change its posture when it raised its head to suddenly see a figure appear across the road from the Wong family small villa, and it was instantly so frightened that its fur stood on end. Loopy Toad thought that its senses could be considered sensitive, but it wasn't to this extent. Just a few seconds ago, the opposite side of the road from the Wong family small villa had clearly been empty. How had someone suddenly appeared? Loopy Toad got up and gripped the ground with its paws as it looked ahead vigilantly, ready for battle. But it didn't make a move, because the newcomer didn't have any murderous intent. The person slowly approached the Wong family small villa. As he got closer, Loopy Toad realized that he was a balding middle-aged man who was wearing a rather casual white coat, flowery pants, and flip-flops. This casual getup put Loopy Toad on high alert. This person's movements were really too frightening. He didn't make the slightest sound when he walked, as if he was walking on air. Standing at the villa's entrance, the man stared at Loopy Toad and paused for a moment before he smiled slightly. "Don't worry, I'm not looking for trouble. I was guided here by a friend, and I have something I want to discuss with Ling Jinren." Who was it? Loopy Toad stared intently at the newcomer. Although this person didn't exude any killing intent, Loopy Toad could clearly sense the danger he exuded. Judging from his superb body movements, it wasn't hard to determine that this person was probably a killer or a bandit by profession. The middle-aged baldy stared at Loopy Toad with a harmless smile on his face. "Little Crispy." Chapter 329. Killer Taoist's visit was beyond Wong Ling's expectations. It could be said that out of all the people who had visited the Wong family small villa, this person's aura was the best. Under normal circumstances, as long as a cultivator appeared on East Wong Road in front of the villa, Wong Ling would immediately sense it. There were no more than 20 people in the entire world who had this kind of exquisite aura concealment technique. This was a compulsory course for a killer, and for a legendary killer in particular, this technique had probably already reached the pinnacle. "Is Ling Jinren busy now?" the middle-aged baldy asked Loopy Toad as he looked at the light on the second floor. Like Wong Ling, Loopy Toad had also guessed the identity of the visitor. Given his body movements and exquisite aura concealment technique, coupled with his rumored penchant for flowery underpants, Loopy Toad knew that this person had to be Killer Taoist. But Loopy Toad still couldn't quite accept his entrance appearance. He was, after all, a publicly acknowledged legendary assassin among human cultivators. Yet, he came here in a pair of flowery underpants and flip-flops. He looked like an old man frying fritters at the entrance of a food market. His appearance could be said to be very unique. Loopy Toad looked at the man in front of it and lay back down on the ground disinterestedly. Then, it pointed to the light on the second floor and used its paw to write on the ground. Finally, it stared at the man in front of it and stretched out a small paw to swipe its neck. This meant, Ling Jinren is doing his homework, anyone who disturbs without permission will die. To Loopy Toad's surprise, the man in front of it actually understood its paw language. The other party just smiled and looked very easygoing. "It's fine. Since Ling Jinren is busy, I'll wait here for a while." Then, he went over to Loopy Toad and rubbed its butt with his flip-flops. "Killer Taoist, make room for me." Loopy Toad. Loopy Toad was startled. Although the Wong family's small garden wasn't particularly big, it wasn't to the point where it didn't have a place to sit. "Why the hell didn't you find a place to sit with me?" Killer Taoist smiled. "I see that you've been lying here for a long time, the floor must be very warm." Loopy Toad. Crazy. Taking a deep breath, Loopy Toad finally got up and moved to the side with a face full of resentment, wagging its tail. God knew what kind of special hobbies these legendary killers had. As a loyal dog that knew its place, Loopy Toad really couldn't be bothered to argue with people, it just treated it as respecting the old and loving the young. As he wished, the middle-aged Baldy sat cross-legged in Loopy Toad's original seat. Then, completely ignoring Loopy Toad's resistance, he directly reached out to grab it by the waist and put it on his lap. Loopy Toad wanted to struggle at first, but this Baldy's faint killing intent, which hid a knife in his smile, made it completely unable to move. Loopy Toad wanted to cry but had no tears. If it had known earlier, it wouldn't have King been lying in the garden. How could it have run into such a weirdo? In the Wong family's small villa, everyone spoiled it. It had never suffered such grievances. But now, Loopy Toad could only stifle its anger in its heart and not dare breathe too loudly, because it had no idea what this Killer Taoist's next move would be. It could only be said that Killer Taoist was worthy of being called a legendary killer. His brain circuitry was like a winding mountain road, which was completely baffling. After that, Killer Taoist started to stroke Loopy Toad's dog fur, and was surprised to find that Loopy Toad's muscles were actually quite strong. He had initially thought that this was just a green-furred Akita that had gained sentience, but after this interaction, the Baldy realized that this dog wasn't as simple as it seemed. "You're a dog with potential." Killer Taoist patted Loopy Toad's rather bouncy butt. "Loopy Toad," the Baldy was full of praise. "Really not bad. As expected of Ling Jinren's pet. If you continue to cultivate like this, you'll become an outstanding first-class spirit beast in less than 100 years. Loopy Toad didn't say anything, and instead wagged its tail a little proudly. If an outsider heard this, they would definitely think that the person speaking was a fool. It wasn't easy to advance to a first-class spirit beast, which could already assume human form, and required at least 1,000 years of cultivation and a heavenly tribulation. But Loopy Toad was different. Its soul had originally been that of a demon king, so it had a certain amount of cultivation experience. Furthermore, its cultivation technique had been specially modified by Little Master Ling and was customized exclusively for it. It could cultivate twice the result with half the effort. Just like the people who had been reborn in many novels, the vast majority of people who had been reborn did nothing more than practice the cultivation method that they had cultivated in their previous life. Generally speaking, as long as you weren't an idiot, your cultivation speed would definitely increase exponentially. It would originally take Loopy Toad several thousand years to become a first-class spirit beast, but now it only needed 100 years or even less. This wasn't an exaggeration. However, this also proved that as a legendary assassin, Killer Taoist's keen insight. The truth was that Wong Ling had already finished his homework long ago. Pen and eraser, these two model workers of the writing industry, had gone to work together the moment Wong Ling had finished reviewing his homework, and in less than 5 minutes, they had finished all the homework. Standing on the second floor, he looked through the window at the harmonious scene of man and dog in the courtyard. The Baldy hugged Loopy Toad and constantly stroked its fur. "Do you know? In the past, I also had a dog that I picked up from the road. It was very sick at that time. So I have always had a special feeling for dogs. The first time I saw it, I knew it wasn't simple." Loopy Toad wagged its tail. It never thought that this legendary killer would actually be a dog lover. "Then, I took the dog home to recuperate from its injuries. I fed it elixirs and all kinds of heavenly treasures every day, and its food was even better than mine. In less than half a month, its injuries were completely healed. Speaking up to this point, Killer Taoist's eyes were already glistening with tears as he recalled the past, and he spoke very emotionally. After that, I specially bought a bucket, and every day I boiled water for it to bathe. Loopy Toad was moved when the Baldy paused and continued, until one day, I forgot to turn off the fire. Loopy Toad, Killer Taoist. Later, I realized that guy was pretty delicious. Loopy Toad, Killer Taoist. I should say that the first time I saw it, I thought it would definitely be delicious. Loopy Toad. Saying this, Killer Taoist pointed to the glistening tear in the corner of his eye. Do you see this tear? When I think about the taste of that dog meat, it's so delicious that I want to cry. Wong Ling. Chapter 330. Just like that, the harmonious scene of Loopy Toad sitting in the small garden with the dog in his arms was shattered by this middle-aged Baldy's heartfelt and touching dog meat story. Loopy Toad blushed with shame as it lay in the Baldy's arms, not daring to move. Sure enough, this was a blatant threat, wasn't it? But to be honest, Killer Taoist's reputation as a great killer was well known both in the world of killers and in the cultivation world. All his missions were to punish evil and eliminate evil, and so far, he had never tasted failure. So while it was horrified, Loopy Toad didn't believe that this Baldy would really attack it. The most important thing was that little Master Ling was still upstairs. Wasn't there a saying that when you beat a dog, you had to look at its master first? Wong Ling's existence was Loopy Toad's greatest safeguard. This scene was seen by Baldy. The story he had told before was actually half true and half false. The purpose of telling it was to scare the dog. In the end, he realized that this green-furred dog was much calmer than he had imagined. From this, he could actually tell whether or not Ling Jinren was as strong as the rumors said. It would be great if he had the chance to fight him. It would definitely be very interesting. The Baldy stroked Loopy Toad's dog fur again as his imagination ran wild. At this moment, the door to the Wong family's small villa suddenly opened. The light from the house shone through the gap in the door, forming a line that shone on Baldy's back. Baldy turned his head and saw a youth wearing white bunny pajamas standing in front of him. May I ask if your excellency is Ling Jinren? Before coming here, the Baldy had fantasized a lot about what this legendary Ling Jinren looked like. As the rumors said, Ling Jinren looked very young, but when the Baldy saw him with his own eyes, he still felt inexplicably alarmed. This was clearly just a child. Wong Ling didn't say anything, and just stared at the Baldy in front of him and nodded. Are you really Ling Jinren? Seeing the teenager admit it, the Baldy was flabbergasted. After a moment of silence, he continued, Can you fight me? Wong Ling couldn't believe it. His strength was actually being questioned. The Baldy cupped his fists in salute to Wong Ling. This time, Junior has come to see Ling Jinren about Shuego's sect, which has been stirring up trouble recently. It's a very important matter. If possible, I hope the real Ling Jinren can come out and meet me. Wong Ling, the Baldy stared at him. Under normal circumstances, before meeting the great senior, you'd have to find someone to stop him, right? I know this trick. Wong Ling. Then, the Baldy straightaway assumed a fighting stance in front of Wong Ling. Then, little brother, please make your move. Wong Ling sighed speechlessly in his heart. This misunderstanding had escalated to this extent. If he didn't accept the challenge, it would be hard to prove his identity. This was actually one of the drawbacks of the great shielding spell. After all, many people had only heard of him in rumors. Before seeing his face, his image in the minds of others was actually just a massive mosaic. Theoretically speaking, close combat had never been a killer's strong suit. But his opponent was Killer Taoist, after all, so Wong Ling's expression turned a little more serious. Loopy Toad was greatly astonished at this scene. From those dead fish eyes, which were about 15% larger than normal, Loopy Toad could see how serious Wong Ling was. This was Wong Ling's normal serious mode. This was the first time Loopy Toad had seen its little master adopt such an attitude. The two of them walked all the way to the abandoned construction site on the other side of East Wong Road. Facing each other, the atmosphere looked tranquil, but was in fact very tense. Loopy Toad had learned a lot about Killer Taoist ever since it had learned to go online. Killer Taoist had two great skills that made him famous. The first was the enemy vanquishing blink technique. Usually, when Killer Taoist went on a mission, the bodies of those vicious people who were being assassinated would be separated from their bodies in the blink of an eye. The second skill was the finger gun. Killer Taoist had used this skill many times in missions, and it had once caused a wave in the assassination circle. But on the current international ranking of assassins, no one's finger gun was more powerful than Killer Taoist's finger gun. Moreover, up until now, whenever Killer Taoist used his finger gun, every single one of his finger guns would hit its target. Little brother, are you ready? Since you're not going to make a move, I'll go first. The Baldy smiled. Seeing that Wong Ling wasn't moving, he couldn't resist the urge to attack. The Baldy raised his right hand and held out his thumb and forefinger at the same time, assuming the posture of a gun. Then, Wong Ling felt a huge amount of spirit energy molecules condense at the tip of the Baldy's index finger to form a small blue dot the size of a soybean, which contained a huge amount of spirit power. The principle behind the finger gun was actually very similar to the old devil's famous chaos ball, but it wasn't difficult to cast, it was easy to learn and very easy to imitate. But there was a big drawback, and that was that the spirit energy ball formed was too small, so it was very easy for it to become saturated. In other words, the finger gun's power was limited, and completely depended on the caster's realm. Loopy Toad looked at the ball of spirit energy at the tip of Killer Taoist's index finger, its chubby little face very calm. If it was only at this level, its little master didn't even need to activate the golden light shield, and could completely block it purely by relying on the strength of his body. But at that moment, Loopy Toad saw the Baldy in front of it actually smile slightly, and his middle, ring and little fingers spread out. Apart from the thumb, spirit energy balls actually condensed at the tips of all four fingers at the same time. Four-finger finger gun. Loopy Toad's expression finally changed slightly at this scene. In a normal situation, it was already very difficult to maintain the condensation of a spirit energy ball at the tip of one finger. Controlling four fingers to condense spirit energy balls at the same time was already a high-end operation that was basically impossible for an ordinary person to achieve. Thus, Loopy Toad's heart trembled slightly at this scene. When all was said and done, this was a legendary killer. Little brother, be careful. The Baldy stared at Wong Ling with a harmless smile on his face. I haven't used this four-finger Gatling gun on anyone else yet. In the next moment, blue sparks appeared on his four fingers, and an endless mass of spirit energy shot toward Wong Ling in an overwhelming manner. This was a high-density attack. The spirit energy balls the size of soybeans swirled up like fireworks as they shot toward Wong Ling. Wong Ling raised his eyebrows. The biggest advantage of this high-density attack was that it could make up for the lack of power in a single spirit energy ball, but at the same time, it had a major drawback, and that was that it was much slower than a single finger gun. Wong Ling's dynamic vision was extremely powerful. The instant these spirit energy balls flew toward him, it was as if they had automatically slowed down by several hundred times, and he could completely use his body movements to dodge them. Thus, there wasn't the slightest ripple on Wong Ling's face, but at that moment, the Baldy in front of him smiled at him again. Little brother, you can't dodge. At that moment, it was as if Wong Ling could hear a faint electronic voice in the air, super aim deployed. Chapter 331. Loopy Toad staggered at this crisp electronic sound. It was very glad that it wasn't eating, otherwise it might have spat out a mouthful of dog food. The most eye-catching thing was that this electronic sound came from Killer Taoist's abdomen. This was another of his secret skills, ventriloquism. In order to keep up with the trend, this guy had actually added an electric sound effect to his ventriloquism. Azure spirit energy sparks created by the four-fingered Gatling gun shot out wildly from Killer Taoist's fingertips with astonishing momentum. As the four fingers rapidly condensed enormous spirit energy balls, coupled with the aura tracking spell that had been applied after the electronic sound, even if it was just a strafing shot, it was guaranteed to hit flesh. Wang Ling sighed and started to move at high speed. Originally, he had only needed to dodge these spirit energy balls, but now each one would track him down and hit him with precision. Thus, Wang Ling had no choice but to use high-speed teleportation to dodge. In this situation, even if he used the golden light shield, the spirit energy balls wouldn't be able to do anything to his body. However, he wasn't wearing a Daoist robe or long johns, but pajamas that hadn't been consecrated yet. The most important thing was that Wang Ling had actually bought these white rabbit pajamas less than 2 months ago. It had cost him 2 boxes of crispy noodle snacks worth of pocket money. He had saved this money under Father Wang's tyrannical regime. Wasting a set of pajamas that he had bought for a small duel, just thinking about it didn't seem like a good deal at all. Sometimes, when Wang Ling thought about it carefully, he really didn't feel bad about using other people's money, and especially treasured things he had bought with his own money. Then, Loopy Toad saw Wang Ling's phantom flicker non-stop on this abandoned construction site. Wherever it went, a ball of spirit energy followed closely behind it. The Baldy couldn't help laughing at this high-speed movement. "Little brother, if you're scared, call Ling Jinren out. This Taoist spell of mine is very powerful. No matter what movement skills you used, you wouldn't be able to escape this kind of tracking spell." This was especially true in short and medium-range battles. This Taoist spell was actually quite difficult to deal with, and it was close to perfect rascality. Wang Ling narrowed his eyes. Actually, he didn't think this Taoist spell was very powerful, but it did consume a lot of magic energy. Even if it was Killer Taoist, it would be good if he could last for half an hour under such continuous consumption. Moreover, this kind of powerful consumption-type Daoist technique was a great test of the tenacity of the meridians in the body. This was because during the process, spiritual energy would be continuously transmitted through the meridians. If used too much, it could cause the meridians to age. This was a common disease of cultivators. So, as he dodged the attacks, he couldn't help sighing in his heart. Old seniors nowadays really didn't take care of their bodies anymore. As he dodged, Wang Ling found an opportunity. He stretched out his hand, and a torrent of spirit power surged out of his palm. For a moment, these balls of spirit energy were actually pinned down. Boundless spirit energy converged into a torrent in front of his palm. This scene left Baldy dumbfounded. Such a massive mass of spiritual energy seemed to have solidified in front of the youth's palm. It was completely suspended in the air, unable to advance even half a step. At that moment, the sky was already dark. Wang Ling's hand swept up this churning mass of spirit energy, and with a confident wave of his hand, he sent this restless torrent into the sky. In that instant, the dark clouds in the sky were blasted open, and starlight poured out to illuminate the abandoned construction site as well as the entire Wang family's small villa. This torrent of spirit energy actually broke through the initially dark sky, and starlight instantly filled the sky. Baldy was stunned, and he couldn't help but be overjoyed. "You really are Ling Jinren." He had initially suspected this youngster's true identity, which was why he had used this killing move just now in order to force Ling Jinren to show himself. Then he added, "Only Ling Jinren can block this kind of attack." Wang Ling already couldn't be bothered to ridicule him. In fact, any enlightened gremlin in the villa could do this kind of attack, including Loopy Toad. As long as Loopy Toad concentrated on cultivating for a few years according to Wang Ling's modified technique, it would be so easy for it to block this kind of attack, but Wang Ling didn't want to crush this legendary killer's confidence, so he didn't say anything. Sometimes, there was no harm without comparison. Crushing a person's confidence was actually quite inhumane, so most cultivators with profound realms couldn't be bothered to compare themselves with others or even show off. Since ancient times, most of those who had been kings, emperors, and saints had chosen to take their wives and children to live in seclusion in the mountains. This principle could also be applied in reality. For example, after every exam, there would always be 2 top students who would throw their draft papers to the ground and shout, F***K. I screwed up again. In the end, when the results came out, these top students had scored 99 points. Therefore, the vision of a true top expert was different. Wang Ling had always thought that those who relied on showing off and crushing others' confidence to establish their image weren't true experts. Invisible pretentiousness was the deadliest. The Baldy cupped his fists in salute to Wang Ling. This is really a case of flooding against the Dragon King's temple. This junior has offended you just now. Wang Ling looked into the distance and saw the old man riding sheep back from the intersection of East Wang Road. It was mealtime, and the old man had taken a stroll outside, and was about to come back to cook. Killer Taoist also saw this scene. May I ask who this is? Loopy Toad, Ling Jinren's grandfather. The Baldy turned pale with shock as he nodded his head. He did indeed recall that the information he had purchased previously did indeed have something to do with old Senior Wang of this small villa. According to the information, this old man's strength was unfathomable, but his aura was just like an ordinary person's. This caused the Baldy to be on full alert. Ling Jinren was already so powerful, and this old man who lived in seclusion behind the scenes was probably already a cultivation fossil. He had to find a chance to greet him later. The Baldy gazed into the distance and pondered in his heart. While he was thinking, the Baldy seemed to suddenly think of something. He stared at Loopy Toad and was instantly startled. Wait! It turns out you can talk. Loopy Toad. My little masterling doesn't talk, so someone has to explain. What can I do? I'm also in despair. At that moment, the Baldy noticed that Wang Ling had glanced at him, then started walking toward the villa alone. The Baldy didn't understand what this action meant. Loopy Toad looked at the Baldy. What are you waiting for? Follow him. The Baldy, can I go? Loopy Toad, you have to know how to read people's eyes. Chapter 332. Loopy Toad and the Baldy followed behind Wang Ling. Everyone who had just arrived at the Wang family's small villa was a little reserved for the first time, and Killer Taoist was no exception. This was because almost everyone had tacitly agreed that the old man Wang in this villa was a powerhouse who had lived in seclusion for a long time. Every time they thought of this, their hearts would always be filled with a deep sense of awe. When they reached the villa's entrance, Wang Ling opened the door and suddenly heard Loopy Toad ask the Baldy a very interesting question behind him. Loopy Toad looked at the Baldy. How did you find this place? Wang Ling also felt that this question was a little outrageous. Because of the great shielding spell, Wang Ling wasn't worried that outsiders would find out anything about the Wang family's small villa. Most people actually didn't know that the legendary Ling Jinren actually lived here. Even legendary killers like Killer Taoist, who had a powerful intelligence network, couldn't do this. So, after dismissing the possibility of an outsider, Wang Ling's first reaction was that there was a traitor among his friends. The Baldy said, I bought this information from the cultivation forum, and it cost me 8,000 gold bricks. The corners of Loopy Toad's eyes twitched. Gold bricks? Baldy nodded. Emichim. These are genuine gold bricks, handmade immortal gold. Holy shit. Immortal gold. Loopy Toad was startled, because immortal gold was a very valuable thing. It had looked up the current currency system, and in Huaxiao Nation, the HNY was the standard currency in circulation. In the era of national cultivation, even ordinary families could use HNY to trade with cultivators. But cultivators were more used to using the old-fashioned rules of the past, and immortal gold was one of the most commonly used items to preserve value. A piece of immortal gold that had absorbed the essence of heaven and earth was worth roughly the same as a toilet in Jinghua City's fifth ring. Immeasurable, Loopy Toad estimated that with 8,000 pieces of immortal gold, it could buy about 4 houses in the fifth ring, 3 in the fourth ring, 1 in the third ring, and only a down payment in the second ring. Loopy Toad, then who on earth gave you this information? The Baldy, I think it should be a big shot in the industry, and he was anonymous when he gave me the information. But when I bought the information, he gave me a cart of vegetables that he grew himself. Loopy Toad, vegetables. The Baldy nodded seriously, and with a flash of light, a large broccoli appeared in his palm. Loopy Toad, Wong Ling. This profiteer. While the old man was preparing dinner, Wong Ling took the Baldy upstairs and didn't have any intention of making him stay for dinner. Everything had to be done in an orderly manner. After all, they weren't that familiar with this legendary assassin yet. In the chat group, only Dharmaraja and grenade throwing had been on the same table. After bringing him to the room, the Baldy did not stand on ceremony. He directly sat on the floor, crossed his arms, and revealed a thoughtful expression. Sitting in a chair, Wong Ling picked Loopy Toad up and put it on his lap. He reached out and patted the dogs, but he was actually directly using Loopy Toad as a messenger. Loopy Toad stared at the Baldy. Tell me about the situation. I believe Ling Zhenren has already heard a lot about Shuego Sect's recent events. The Baldy didn't stand on ceremony. Staring at Wong Ling, he got straight to the point. Actually, the mastermind behind Shuego Sect was my Shishu Daoist Taotai. Wong Ling's eyes twitched at this news, because he clearly remembered that old Antique had given them a theory of history lesson not long ago, and had been talking about Daoist Taotai and Gorgeous Itinerant. Loopy Toad, then your Shifu is Gorgeous Itinerant. That's right, the Baldy sighed. The whole thing probably started with the grudge between the two of them. I'm still investigating the specific details. But from the clues I have, my Shishu's purpose in establishing Shuego Sect this time was for revenge. Back then, my Shifu accidentally killed Black Gauze, my Shishu's adopted son. Loopy Toad licked its fur. Is this person also a killer? The Baldy shook his head. No, I've looked into all the names on the killer list, but I've never seen this person's name. Also, I only found out about this when I fought with my Shishu not long ago. It was probably this incident that caused the two of them to break up and leave the killer circle. Loopy Toad, then why did he establish Shuego Sect? The Baldy frowned and said, Shishu's Shuego Sect is now developing a fruit that can stimulate a foundation establishment cultivator's potential for a short period of time. According to the information I have, after eating the fruit, there's a period of incubation. Once the incubation period is over, the fruit's energy will be released, and it will be difficult for a foundation establishment cultivator's physique to suppress this energy, which will eventually lead to a spirit explosion. Spirit explosion. Loopy Toad's green fur trembled in fright, and even Wong Ling's pupils abruptly contracted. If this was the case, then Shuego Sect's purpose in releasing the 12 missing students was very obvious. This was equivalent to planting 12 human bombs in the school. The power of a spirit explosion was no different from a small nuclear bomb. Generally speaking, the higher a cultivator's realm was, the more powerful the spirit explosion would be because they had accumulated more spirit power in their bodies. However, after those missing students ate the fruit that could stimulate their potential spirit power, they would explode on the spot if they couldn't suppress the increase in their spirit power. The Baldy sighed. I originally wanted to mediate this matter, but in the end, I was too weak and couldn't persuade Shishu. Loopy Toad, even you couldn't persuade him. Aren't you at the legendary level? The Baldy's lips twitched. In our killer circle, killers at the bottom are divided into third-rate to first-rate, middle-level killers are divided into high-level and top-notch, and high-level killers are divided into legendary and epic. I'm only at the legendary level, I can't beat an epic level killer. Loopy Toad, if I may ask, what's the difference between legendary and epic? The Baldy, it's like hitting a dragon saber with a small stool in a newbie village, Loopy Toad. Furthermore, there are currently only 2 publicly recognized epic level killers in the killer world. One is my Shifu, gorgeous itinerant, and the other is my Shirshu, Daoist Tao Tai. Speaking up to this point, the Baldy paused. Of course, there's actually another great ancestor level figure. That's my Shifu and Shirshu's Shifu, Numinous Mother. Both Loopy Toad and Wong Ling were blank when they heard this name. Great ancestor. Thus, Wong Ling pinched Loopy Toad's butt and motioned for it to continue asking questions. Loopy Toad, is this person very strong? I've never fought her, so I don't know. The Baldy shook his head and said, but in our current assassin circle, all of the cultivation method atlases were written by this ghost hatchet Numinous Mother. Do you know the 1,000 Years of Anal Explosion? She's the original work. Loopy Toad. Chapter 333. Killer Taoist, 1,000 Years of Anal Explosion, is publicly recognized as the most powerful assassination Dao spell in our assassin circle. If used properly, you can kill someone in one blow. But it also has a flaw, which is that it's very difficult to seize the opportunity. Usually, it has to be used with soap. Wong Ling, Loopy Toad, the Baldy said solemnly, of course, in addition to this most powerful assassination Dao spell, Numinous Mother also pioneered a lot of ingenious things in the field of assassins. Most of the unique skills my Shifu and Shirshu have mastered came from her. Have you ever seen her in person? Loopy Toad asked. No. The Baldy shook his head. Apart from Shifu and Shirshu, no one else has seen Numinous Mother's original form. Great Ancestor is elusive, and only epic-level people can see her. At my current realm, I'll probably have to cultivate for another 1,000 years to catch up to Shifu and Shirshu before I can see her. This is one of my biggest regrets in life. However, I was fortunate enough to see the original copy of Great Ancestor's Cultivation Manual, Self-Cultivation for Assassins. Great Ancestor wrote it in her exercise books, and there were 10 of them in total. Her handwriting was beautiful. Shifu gave it to me to read. But later, the original copy disappeared. It was said that Great Ancestor confiscated it. The Baldy sighed. At that time, Shifu only lent it to me for 30 seconds, and I benefited a lot just from the contents on the title page. Great Ancestor is indeed Great Ancestor. She's amazing. In fact, even without Killer Taoist's detailed explanation, Wong Ling could already imagine how amazing this Numinous Mother was. The assassin circle had a very strict hierarchy, and it could be said that it was as difficult as ascending to heaven to become a legendary killer, while epic-level killers like Gorgeous Itinerant and Taoist Tao Tai were even harder to come by in 10,000 years. This sort of ranking among assassins had nothing to do with seniority, and everything to do with ability. In fact, Killer Taoist's skills were lower than many of the top killers on the list, but his Shifu was amazing. Coupled with his talent, he was rated as a legendary killer at a young age, and had even become the new guardian of the killer list. As the only great ancestor-level killer in the assassin world, it went without saying how amazing Numinous Mother was. The most important thing was that Wong Ling felt that this name sounded a little familiar. He didn't know where he had heard it before. At this point, the Baldy couldn't help but sigh. Thinking about my master and martial uncle, their luck is really good. To be able to pick up the original copy of such a legendary cultivation technique. Loopy Toad was startled again. You picked this up? Yes. Baldy nodded his head. At that time, there was a sentence on the title page of this cultivation technique. Whoever picks up this book will automatically become a disciple of the Numinous Mother. Hearing this, the corners of Wong Ling's mouth couldn't help twitching. Did experts nowadays all accept disciples so casually? Therefore, both master and martial uncle's luck is extraordinary. The Baldy said, although I became a legendary level assassin at a young age, it's not easy to be an assassin these days. Look at my hair. I can't recover it no matter how many elixirs I use. If I had known this would happen, I would have used the Overlord shampoo earlier. Wong Ling, loopy toad. Then what's the purpose of your visit? After spouting nonsense for so long, the Baldy slapped his head abruptly when he heard this. He had almost forgotten what he was here for. Hands on his knees, he stared at Wong Ling. The Shuego sect incident this time stems from a feud between two epic-level assassins, and we juniors are powerless to persuade them. So I hope that Ling Jinren can intervene on our behalf. Then, the Baldy stood up and plopped down on his knees in front of Wong Ling. Please. Ling Jinren. Wong Ling, this was a matter of the assassin circle, and Wong Ling actually didn't want to get involved at all. However, this Shuego sect incident would ultimately affect his peaceful high school life, so he was very conflicted about whether to take action or not. Loopy toad, what's in it? At that moment, the Baldy smiled slightly, and spirit light flashed in his hand as he took out a gold card. Ling Jinren, do you know that old crispy noodle snack flagship store on Spirit Creek Road? This is a 100-year gold card. Apart from being able to sample the latest crispy noodle snack flavor every month, it also gives you the privilege of coming to the store to eat your fill every week at any time. Wong Ling. Loopy toad, and so, the operation this time was happily decided. Wong Ling felt that this was a decision he had made after serious consideration and 3 rounds of deep contemplation. It wasn't a careless decision at all. When Baldy was about to leave, Mother Wong and the old man both came back. Both of them were busy in the kitchen. Even when he reached the entrance of the Wong family's small villa, the Baldy didn't have the courage to greet the old man. Wong Ling felt that old man Wong's persona had already been thoroughly deified after all the people who visited the Wong family's small villa had endlessly imagined him. First time unfamiliar, second time familiar, there would always be a chance next time. This was how the Baldy comforted himself before he left. I'll have to trouble Ling Jinren with this matter. If you really can't persuade them, you can just teach them a lesson each, especially Martial Uncle. It would be even better if you can beat him until he's paralyzed from head to toe. In any case, it's not good for him to come out and scare people with his ugly looks. As he said this, the Baldy seemed to summon up a lot of courage, and there was a faint sadness in his eyes and tone. I'll take care of him for the rest of his life. Wong Ling had heard a lot of rumors about Taoist Tao Tai in the last 2 days, but he had always been curious about how ugly he could be. The feud between my Shifu and martial uncle isn't something I forgot to tell Ling Jinren just now. It seems that the reason why my martial uncle is personally taking action this time is because he's reached an agreement with an organization called Mo Immortal Castle. Wong Ling nodded slightly. This Mo Immortal Castle could be considered an old acquaintance, but their biggest weakness was that they were too weak, so Wong Ling hadn't taken them seriously from the beginning. In fact, when the Baldy had mentioned this, Wong Ling had been a little surprised. Do you know what their purpose is? Loopy Toad asked. If my guess is correct, Mo Immortal Castle was the one who provided the intelligence on Shuego sect's attack on all the high schools this time, including the information on the 12 missing students and the information on my Shifu after he retired from the assassination circle. I've investigated this organization. They're average in strength, but they have a lot of gossip. The Baldy said, they're responsible for providing my martial uncle with intelligence leads, while my martial uncle wants to retrieve a supreme weapon of mass destruction from my Shifu for them. Wong Ling and Loopy Toad's eyes twitched. Gorgeous itinerant supreme weapon of mass destruction. I've followed Shifu for many years, but I've never heard of this supreme weapon of mass destruction. There has to be a mistake somewhere. The Baldy was also at a loss. But speaking up to this point, he suddenly thought of something. Oh, that's right, there's one more thing. After my Shifu retired, he chose to become a high school teacher, and his body changed a lot. Saying this, he took out a photo and stuffed it into Wang Ling's hand. This is his photo, please take a look, Ling Jinren. Wang Ling couldn't help being startled when he saw the photo. He couldn't be more familiar with the person in the photo. It was a fatty who was eating spicy strips. Chapter 334. To be honest, if it hadn't been for this photo of Killer Taoist, he would never have been able to correctly guess Old Antique's true identity. From the very beginning, Wang Ling had been very clear about Old Antique's identity. He knew that Old Antique's identity definitely wasn't simple, but no matter what, there was no way he could be connected to the legendary Gorgeous Itinerant. But now, after combining Gorgeous Itinerant's identity with Old Antique's, Wang Ling realized that a lot of things indeed made sense. First of all, there was Old Antique's exquisite chalk-throwing skills. Back then, in order to protect Lotus Sun, he had used a piece of chalk to kill a golden core killer in the office. This didn't sound very difficult, but the crux of the matter was the chalk. Under normal circumstances, an ordinary piece of chalk wouldn't be able to penetrate a golden core cultivator's body no matter how hard it was. It was only by combining techniques and skills that the chalk could be used to its fullest potential. Secondly, back at the start of the semester, Wang Ling had sensed the memory that Old Antique had sealed away. Because he was worried that forcibly inspecting the memory would damage his brain, Wang Ling hadn't taken any forceful measures back then. It was very clear that this sealed memory definitely had something to do with Taoist Taoge's godson, Black Gauze. Finally, after Old Antique's most recent history lesson, he had seen with his own eyes Old Antique looking at himself in the bathroom with a melancholy expression on his face. It was very obvious that Old Antique had been recalling his past appearance. Now that he knew Old Antique's true identity, Wang Ling was extremely curious. What on earth had this peerlessly handsome man, who was publicly acknowledged in cultivation history, experienced to become like this? It was July 2nd on Sunday in the 10th week of the semester. It could be said that Father Wang and Jiang Bai's father, Jiang Haifu, the head of Kitchen Knife sect, had been very close recently after they had hooked up at the school gate. It took Jiang Haifu 2 days to finish reading Let Go of That Wet Nurse, which Father Wang had written earlier, and he prostrated himself in admiration. This actually had a lot to do with Jiang Haifu's limited level of education. Kitchen Knife sect might be doing pretty well now, but as the helmsman behind it, Jiang Haifu had always had a longing for culture, and even more so, a kind of reverence for cultured people. Although Father Wang hadn't even graduated from the foundation establishment stage in junior high school, he had been expanding his knowledge while staying at home all these years. Even if he didn't know everything about astronomy and geography, he still had the knowledge to be extremely knowledgeable. As a professional web novelist, the most important thing was to be able to bluff readers. Father Wang could be said to be very confident in this regard. At the very least, it was no problem for him to bluff a rough man like Jiang Haifu. 2 days ago, Father Wang had kept his word and sent Jiang Haifu 2 cigars. It wasn't a lot, just 2. But Father Wang guessed that when Jiang Haifu received these 2 cigars, he would definitely tremble with excitement from head to toe. After all, ordinary people couldn't afford to smoke these things. In return, Jiang Haifu had sent Father Wang 10 fine black jade kitchen knives, which Kitchen Knife sect had specially custom-made for restaurant chefs. From the material to the workmanship, they could be said to be first-rate. They could cut through iron like mud, and it didn't take much effort for them to easily cut through pig bones. Even if they weren't used to cut vegetables, they were also good for collection. These 10 kitchen knives had just arrived this morning. When he came downstairs for breakfast, he saw the old man holding the knives in his hands and praising them profusely, completely sparing no words of praise. The old man had been a chef for many years, and had in fact always been very picky about kitchen knives. For the old man to hold them in his hands and praise them like this, their quality was clear to see. Good knives. These 10 knives are really good. The old man stroked the back of the black jade kitchen knives and sighed softly with his fingers, causing the knives to give off a crisp, zing sound. Holding his coffee, Father Wong smiled. As long as you like it, Dad. The old man nodded. I've rarely seen these kitchen knives in all my years as a professional chef, and they belong to the category of rare, high-class goods. You said before that the person who delivered the knives was classmate Ling Ling's father. Father Wong took a sip of coffee and nodded. Yes, but he's not in the same class. The old man laughed. That's good. Bring that kid and his father home someday, I'll compare notes with him in cooking. Father Wong couldn't help laughing. Come on, Dad, he's the head of kitchen knife sect, he's at least several hundred years old. Father Wong's words were quite cryptic, and to be honest, even Wong Ling felt that there was no way to compare them. Although Jiang Haifu's kitchen knife sect had only been established several hundred years ago, looking at its current scale of development, it could already be considered a leading brand in the food and beverage industry. The most important thing was that Kikaro restaurant, where the old man had worked, had been a subsidiary of kitchen knife sect. Now that the old man, a retired employee, wanted to compare notes with the boss, Father Wong found it funny. That's not right. The old man narrowed his eyes and smiled as he waved his hand. It's just a competition between peers. There's no difference in skill level, and it's just entertainment. You don't say, I'm actually quite confident. Never mind that he's a Chinese head of household, even if he's a chef god, I can still win. Father Wong, Dad, sometimes you have to be a little modest. Let me tell you, if you really want to compete, he'll definitely go easy on you. The old man, tell him before he comes. If he dares go easy, I'll have Ling Ling's grandmother look for him tonight. Father Wong and Wong Ling, the old man had always been very confident in his cooking skills. After talking about this today, Father Wong realized that he actually knew very little about the old man's experience as a chef when he was young. He only knew that back then, the old man had indeed been all-powerful for a long time at Kikaro restaurant. In the eyes of the old man's batch of retired employees back then, the old man was a legend, the kind of person who could be worshipped like an idol. All right then. I'll talk to him about it later and arrange a time. Father Wong couldn't dissuade the old man, and in the end could only smile and agree to it, treating it as an entertainment event for the old man's retirement. All right. Let me know in advance when you want to come back, Sheep and I will go buy the ingredients. Also, I have a knife here that needs to be serviced. The old man was instantly amused, and he took something out of Jiang Bai's father's box of kitchen knives. It was only then that Father Wong and Wong Ling realized that there was actually a free voucher for kitchen knives in the box. Chapter 335. It was only later that Wong Ling learned that Fatty Luo's metal shop and kitchen knife sect had a very close partnership. Kitchen knife sect's food and beverage business was spread all over the country. In Shanghai City alone, there were no less than 100 chain restaurants of all sizes, and Fatty Luo monopolized almost all of the table knives they used. After that, Wong Ling received an assignment from the old man. He was responsible for taking the kitchen knife which the old man had kept for many years to Fatty Luo's metal shop for maintenance. It just so happened that the heavenly material sword which he had given to Fatty Luo for research was still there, and Wong Ling could pick it up on the way. When the master of Immortal Mansion had made the sword, he had coincidentally synthesized a substance that could deal with Wong Ling. Wong Ming's previous suggestion had been for Wong Ling to pick up the sword as soon as possible, and leave it to him to deal with. Before he left, Wong Ling didn't forget to put the free maintenance voucher in his pocket, although he felt that even if he didn't take it, Fatty Luo wouldn't take a cent from him. But when all was said and done, there were many times when Wong Ling didn't want to do someone a favor for no reason. What was more, this Fatty was very cunning. Fatty Luo was a businessman, and giving a businessman a chance to do him a favor would often result in him losing everything. Because he had already been to Fatty Luo's shop last time, Wang Ling already knew its general location. He just needed to teleport to the shop. When he teleported to the shop, Fatty Luo was wearing a single-sided magnifying glass as he carefully examined an ancient jade. His expression was extremely focused, and his face was still faintly flushed. Only then did Wang Ling remember that in addition to being a smith, Fatty Luo was also an antique collector. Looking at his focused expression, it was very likely that he had picked up some good treasure again. Wang Ling didn't disturb him, and just stood on the side with the glass in hand. He had teleported without making a sound, and Fatty Luo hadn't noticed him at all. Roughly 10 minutes later, Fatty Luo pinched the piece of jade between his thumb and forefinger, held it up to the ceiling light, and couldn't help praising it loudly. Good stuff. I really picked up a treasure this time. If only Ling Jinren was here, he would definitely be very interested in this thing. Wang Ling, after another 30 seconds, Fatty Luo took off the magnifying glass and saw Wang Ling standing in front of him with a kitchen knife. Fatty Luo, he was so scared that all the hair on his body stood on end. He could only blame Wang Ling for hiding his aura so well that he hadn't detected it at all. But how on earth had Ling Jinren come in? Ling Jinren, why are you here? Fatty Luo had no time to think about this as he wiped at his cold sweat and forcibly suppressed the horror on his face. Wang Ling didn't say anything, and just handed over the gold coupons and kitchen knife. Fatty Luo nodded and accepted the kitchen knife, instantly understanding. Ling Jinren, don't worry. Leave this kitchen knife to me, and I'll give Ling Jinren a green channel service. I'll work on it tonight, and I'll deliver it to you first thing tomorrow morning. Wang Ling nodded in satisfaction. Holding the kitchen knife, Fatty Luo carefully put it away in a magic box. This box was also a treasure similar to a storage space, but unlike other storage spaces, there were many smaller spaces inside, which Fatty Luo used specifically to receive items that needed to be repaired or maintained. Generally speaking, whether it was for repair or maintenance, the items had to be cleaned before they could be carried out, and this box actually had a cleaning function. Wang Ling watched as Fatty Luo put the old man's knife into one of the spaces, sprinkled a spoonful of gold powder inside, and then sealed the box. The sound of a washing machine instantly came from inside the box. Fatty Luo, I designed this magic box based on the principle of a cupboard washing machine. It's very useful. But the only flaw is that I forgot to add a noise reduction function when I designed it. Wang Ling, after putting the kitchen knife away, Fatty Luo patted his head, and then suddenly recalled the matter of the heavenly material sword. That's right, Jinren, I'll return the sword you left with me to analyze last time to you. After saying that, he pushed open the closet on the right and took out the sword. Fatty Luo had already wrapped the entire sword up. Wang Ling had been worried about the effect the material would have on him, and had forgotten to tell Fatty Luo before coming here, so the heavenly material sword had been wrapped up so tightly that it looked like a mummy. Have you finished studying it? Wang Ling asked telepathically as he took the sword. Fatty Luo waved his hand as he fanned himself. Ever since I studied Lord Jinka, all the spirit swords in the world have been mediocre and dull to me. The materials used to make this heavenly material sword are indeed exquisite, and there are even some that I've never heard of before. But that's all there is to it. Besides, this sword doesn't have a sword spirit. There's no point in studying a sword without a sword spirit. Wang Ling nodded in agreement with Fatty Luo's words, which were the truth. Fatty Luo's eyes sparkled faintly, and when he mentioned Jinka, even his words became impassioned. As a spirit sword, it must give birth to a sword spirit before it can be considered a valuable spirit sword. Furthermore, the sword spirit it gives birth to will either be stronger than Lord Jinka or as cute as Lord Jinka, otherwise, it won't catch my eye. Hearing this, Wang Ling sighed in his heart. A good fatty had turned gay just like that. Opening his field of vision, Wang Ling put the heavenly material sword away. In that instant, Fatty Luo instantly recalled how Wang Ling had used just a pair of heavenly eyes to gather energy to blast open the spatial wall of Immortal Mansion. Ling Jinren's heavenly eye should be of a very high level, right? Fatty Luo didn't know Wang Ling's specific level. Actually, since ancient times, there had been no clear upper limit to the level of the heavenly eye. After cultivating to the soul formation stage and opening up the heavenly eye, what level it could reach depended on talent and luck. If Ling Jinren took a look at that jade, he might be able to see something. Thinking this, a bold idea suddenly popped into Fatty Luo's mind. He looked at Wang Ling, took out the ancient jade he had examined before, and held it out to Wang Ling. Ling Jinren, can you help me take a look at this ancient jade with your heavenly eye? What was this? Wang Ling took the ancient jade and frowned. Fatty Luo, I spent 3 immortal gold bars to get this from the second-hand cultivation antiques market. There's no middleman to make a profit, so the seller makes more money and the customer spends less. Wang Ling, Fatty Luo answered truthfully, the old man selling it didn't know what it was, but I think this ancient jade is extraordinary. I just gave it a cursory examination just now, and it seems that there's a heavenly mark inside. I want Ling Jinren to help me take a closer look. Heavenly mark. Chapter 336. Of course, jokes aside, Wang Ling naturally knew what a heavenly fissure was. Jade with a heavenly fissure was also called a heavenly fissure stone. According to ancient texts, this was a product of the cremation of a true immortal expert after his death, and was somewhat similar to the sariras left behind by eminent Buddhist monks. It had very powerful hidden spirit power, and if one knew how to use it, even someone whose realm wasn't at the true immortal realm could use it to directly construct nomological powers. But since ancient times, the chances of a heavenly fissure stone appearing had been very limited. That was because when a true immortal expert reached a certain age and died of old age, they normally wouldn't order someone to cremate them and then scatter their ashes into the ocean in pursuit of poetry and faraway places. A normal true immortal expert would definitely look for a great place with good mountains and rivers and think of a way to keep their bodies. As long as they could survive the samsara spirit tribulation, they would be able to return to their bodies and live for another 2,000 years to break through to the next realm. Thus, no true immortal would usually choose to cremate their bodies and leave behind a heavenly fissure stone. The most direct way to appraise a heavenly fissure stone was to use the heavenly eye to examine the jade and see if there were any black cracks inside. Each crack represented nomological powers that the original owner of the heavenly fissure stone had nurtured. The more cracks there were, the more valuable the heavenly fissure stone was. Furthermore, these tiny cracks were invisible to the naked eye, and could only be seen after cultivating the heavenly eye to a certain level. Thus, Fatty Luo couldn't make an accurate judgment even after observing it for a long time. His heavenly eye was too weak, and even with all kinds of appraisal magic treasures from the metal shop, he still couldn't accurately detect heavenly fissure. But whether this ancient jade had been picked up from the cultivation antique market, and whether it was the legendary heavenly fissure stone or not, Wang Ling wouldn't be able to make an accurate judgment without using the heavenly eye. But if it really was a heavenly fissure stone, Fatty Luo would have hit the jackpot this time. Holding the jade, Wang Ling opened his heavenly eye, and his pupils instantly turned into 3 golden petals. A look of shock appeared on Fatty Luo's face. He could sense a powerful surge of spirit power surging out of those eyes. His eye power seeped into the jade. Just as Dharmaraja had said, he found a black crack in the jade. Because he had penetrated it with his eye power, he could even clearly see the jagged edges of the fissure. With his eye power, he could see the long black fissure in its entirety, which looked like a bottomless abyss. Wang Ling narrowed his eyes slightly. He felt that his power of sight could penetrate even deeper into the fissure, and directly probe its depths. Then, in the next moment, the scenery in front of him changed. What appeared in front of him was a blue sea and blue sky. He had actually arrived at an unknown island. Was this an illusion? Standing on the edge of a beach, Wang Ling felt the cool sea breeze blowing over him. He picked up a handful of sand from the ground and realized that this scenery was actually real as it flowed through his fingertips. Then, this probably wasn't an illusion. He speculated that it was very likely that his eye power had triggered the space hidden in the heavenly fissure. This was a space that a normal soul formation stage cultivator wouldn't be able to see through. Wang Ling vaguely felt that the person who had set up this space had probably planned this beforehand. While he was feeling puzzled, he suddenly heard a strong gust of wind behind his head. He dodged to the side and saw a coconut actually fly at him from behind. Dong! The coconut didn't hit Wang Ling, and instead crashed heavily into the surface of the sea, causing a huge splash. Looking in the direction where the coconut had been thrown, Wang Ling saw an old man in white slowly approaching him with a coconut in his hand. You were actually able to dodge this old man's hidden weapon. Looks like you're a powerful junior, the old man exclaimed. Wang Ling was stunned. So this coconut was a hidden weapon? What kind of freaking hidden weapon was this? Did your family use coconuts as hidden weapons? They really weren't as reliable as chalk heads. Who are you? Wang Ling narrowed his eyes as he stared at the old man in front of him and asked telepathically. The coconut old man stared at Wang Ling. My surname is Pang, and my first name is Guang, Wang Ling. Guang. The coconut old man, don't panic. I'm a true immortal, but I definitely won't hurt you. Wang Ling, the coconut old man, I won't hurt you, but you've gone too far. Wang Ling. The coconut old man, can't you look a little shocked when I say I'm a true immortal? Wang Ling, seeing Wang Ling's poker face from beginning to end, the coconut old man sighed and in the end simply gave up. AI, forget it. I can't be bothered to bicker with a rude junior like you, but you should be glad that you're the first person to come here since I set up this secret space in the heavenly fissure. For some reason, when Wang Ling heard this, he didn't feel lucky at all. After a moment of silence, the old man looked at Wang Ling and suddenly said, Little brother, do you know about the samsara spirit tribulation? Wang Ling frowned. Don't worry, I'm just giving you a brief introduction. The coconut old man smiled softly. The samsara spirit tribulation is a hurdle that must be overcome in order to advance from the true immortal realm, but since ancient times, only a handful of people have succeeded. There are all sorts of ways to go through the tribulation. Usually, true immortals who want to go through the tribulation will keep their bodies intact and let their souls fall into the gate of samsara to be interrogated by the thunder tribulation. After some time, they will walk out of the gate of samsara and successfully return to their bodies, and the samsara spirit tribulation will be a success. At that time, those who successfully go through the tribulation will have their lives extended by 2,000 years, which can pave the way for them to break through to the venerated immortal realm. But a lot of people don't know the true essence of the samsara spirit tribulation. When it comes to the samsara spirit tribulation, I use the most difficult method, but once I succeed, I can directly transcend the cycle of reincarnation and become a venerated immortal. Wang Ling was puzzled and a little curious at the same time. As the saying goes, break and then build. I deliberately burned my own body and asked someone to use it as a sacrifice to refine my soul, sealing it in this heavenly fissure. Given time, I just need to wait for the fated person in this heavenly fissure to set up 9,981 statues for me all over the world, and then find 99,981 disciples. That's when I go through the samsara spirit tribulation. Saying this, the coconut old man looked excited. He threw away the coconut and gripped Wang Ling's hand excitedly. And little brother, you are the fated person. Wang Ling, the coconut old man laughed heartily. In the future, when I become a venerated immortal, you will be my direct disciple. Wang Ling pulled his hand back in disgust and sighed, where on earth did this idiot come from? He was so bored that his balls hurt. The coconut old man stared at Wang Ling with a burning gaze. If you don't promise me, I won't let you out. Even if you scream your lungs out, no one will come to save you. But as soon as the coconut old man said this, he regretted it, because he realized that Wang Ling's body was actually gradually becoming transparent. What? This was a space he had personally set up. How could a junior escape so easily? Looking at Wang Ling, who was gradually becoming transparent and almost disappearing, the coconut old man cried out in horror, "Holy shit! Little brother, wait! Don't go offline. Everything can be discussed. Let me finish what I have to say." Chapter 337. There were actually a lot of ways to get through the samsara spirit tribulation. For example, the coconut old man had mentioned before, sending one's soul into the gate of samsara to be interrogated by the thunder tribulation. This was a common method. Of course, the risk was actually minimal. While the thunder tribulation was painful, in the end, it was better than taking the side road. If the coconut old man had opened up a space in the heavenly fissure and waited for his believers to come, then set up statues all over the world, after leaving the space, Wang Ling withdrew his heavenly eye and tossed the ancient jade back to Fatty Luo. Fatty Luo stared at Wang Ling hopefully and asked, "Ling Jinren, is this real?" Wang Ling nodded his head. Fatty Luo had indeed picked up a treasure. But because of time constraints, Wang Ling hadn't examined it carefully just now, and hadn't been able to find out what on earth the nomological power contained in the heavenly fissure stone was. But Wang Ling's answer alone was enough to make Fatty Luo smile like an overlord flower. "I never thought that I would find such a treasure just by casually looking around." Of course, Fatty Luo was happy, but Wang Ling wasn't happy at all. He had initially just wanted to help Fatty Luo verify the heavenly fissure stone's authenticity, and had never expected that there would actually be a sealed true immortal space hidden inside. Although that coconut old man didn't look like a bad person, Wang Ling had never thought that he would have anything to do with such a person. For Wang Ling, this was actually the beginning of an ill-fated relationship. A heavenly fissure stone had infinite spirit power. If you had a way to activate it, it was equivalent to having the power of a true immortal. Furthermore, the heavenly fissure stone itself could help raise one's realm, and was a priceless treasure that was hard to come by. And usually, priceless treasures brought about the calamity of death. Wang Ling lowered his eyelids and gave Fatty Luo a final warning with his eyes, which could be considered a kind reminder. Fatty Luo immediately got the message. He put the heavenly fissure stone away and smiled fiercely. "Don't worry, Ling Jinren, I don't have any use for this ancient jade at this stage. At most, it's a collector's item." Wang Ling nodded and directly turned around. Fatty Luo saw Wang Ling's figure turn transparent and then directly disappear in front of him. Fatty Luo secretly marveled at this scene. This had to be the legendary teleportation spell, right? Fatty Luo was extremely envious. Ling Jinren's realm was really too high. Even if Fatty Luo chased him barefoot, it would take him several thousand years to catch up. When he got home, he lay on his bed and thought about that coconut old man. He didn't expect that there was actually someone in this world who was painstakingly pursuing the immortal venerable realm. For most people, this was a rather illusory realm. There were even fewer descriptions of people who had reached this realm in ancient books. The only famous person recorded in historical records was the legendary immortal Jin Yuan, who was rumored to be a venerated immortal. However, this rumor actually had no basis, and there was no way to verify it. Wang Ling clenched his fists. The Tao Talisman seal on his arm was to help him better control his aura and suppress his spirit energy in order to maintain a normal standard of living. But when he needed to burst out with power, he could still display astonishing strength. Take the last time he had closed the gate between worlds with one arm. He remembered that he hadn't taken off the Tao talisman, but he had already unleashed the power of a true immortal. If he took off the Tao talisman seal, even Wang Ling himself didn't know what would happen. After lying in bed for a while, Wang Ling suddenly felt like his eyelids were fighting to stay open, and he actually felt a little sleepy. This was strange to Wang Ling. Ever since he was a child, he had a problem with not liking to sleep. He could count the few times he had felt sleepy on his fingers. Had he used up too much energy using the heavenly eye just now? Wang Ling didn't know that using the heavenly eye to observe the heavenly fissure had actually consumed so much of his eye power. But on second thought, Wang Ling felt that using the heavenly eye to observe the heavenly fissure shouldn't have been enough to make him feel sleepy. Using the heavenly eye to leave the old man's space should have consumed most of his eye power. When he had been in the space on the island, Wang Ling still remembered that coconut old man's solemn vow that there was no way he could leave the space. Unfortunately, it wasn't up to the coconut old man to decide whether Wang Ling wanted to leave or stay. After taking the old man's kitchen knife to Fatty Luo for maintenance, Wang Ling had originally planned to come back and review his homework a little. But now that he was feeling so sleepy that he stuck to the bed like glue, he didn't want to move at all. Staring at the desk a few meters away from him, he stretched out his hand, then slowly put it down. Wang Ling felt that this was probably the legendary lazy cancer. Forget it. I'll just sleep a little and review later. Looking at the desk in front of him, Wang Ling had already completely given up on resisting. Before he closed his eyes, he sent a text message to Wang Ming on his wristwatch. He had already retrieved the heavenly material sword from Fatty Luo's place. Wang Ling felt that it would be more reliable for Wang Ming to pick it up himself. He wouldn't feel at ease leaving it to any courier service. Even if it was worth it, if the courier company really did lose it, given the quality of the heavenly material sword, even selling the entire courier company wouldn't be able to pay for it. After composing the text message and clicking send, Wang Ling lay on his side on the bed and slowly closed his aching eyes. Dreams were also a rare thing for Wang Ling. Under normal circumstances, he didn't dream when he slept, although he would occasionally have a few foreboding dreams. After about 4 or 5 minutes, Wang Ling confirmed that he had entered a dream. The dream in front of him was actually a vast ocean, and he was actually standing on an island. Wait, the scenery in this dream seemed a little familiar. The corners of Wang Ling's mouth twitched, and he decisively turned around to look behind him, just in time to see the coconut old man staring at him with a sinister smile on his face. He. Little brother, I told you long ago, you can't escape. Wang Ling, the coconut old man's face was full of pride. I've already set up a soul contract in this space. The first person to enter the space will automatically sign the contract. From now on, when you dream, you'll dream of me. Aren't you surprised? Aren't you excited? Aren't you surprised? In the next moment, Wang Ling suddenly woke up with a start. Was it because he hadn't slept for too long that he was sleeping the wrong way? Wang Ling looked at the time. It was such a short dream, but he realized that he had actually slept for a full 20 minutes just now. What kind of feeling was this? You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.